Despite what some people may think, psychic powers, telepathy, telekinesis, precognition, all the rest, have no moral gradient. They are neither good nor bad. Houses are different. Shirley Jackson was right. Some houses are born bad. Houses like this one. Houses like Rose Red.
Welcome to Now Playing Podcast's Rose Red Retrospective Series.
Off to the house on Haunted Hill, I see.
Part of our Stephen King movie review series.
Well, hold on. This may prove to be a bumpy ride.
Hosted by Stuart.
You're a step away from stardom, dear boy.
Arnie.
You're encouraging.
Guilty.
And Brock.
I don't have a psychic bone in my body, as you well know.
But be warned, this episode will contain detailed plot spoilers and strong language.
Save the warnings for someone who's not broke. Okay?
We hope you enjoy the show.
Speak your mind, child.
Today, we're stepping foot in Rose Red, starring Nancy Travis, Matt Kieslar, Julian Sands, Kimberly J. Brown, David Dukes, Judith Ivey, Melanie Linsky, Matt Ross, Kevin Teig, Julia Campbell, Emily Deschanel, Laura Kenny, C.D. DeLoca, Yvonne Seo, Jimmy Simpson, directed by Craig R. Baxley. This is the Now Playing co-host who wishes he was not here, Arnie.
And your limey Jack Tar Stewart.
And save the warnings for someone who's not broke, Brock.
So welcome back again to Stephen King, something once more that was a original novel for television. Didn't start as a novel for television, started as a novel for Steven Spielberg, but it had a journey.
Yeah, if people weren't able to join us a few years ago for a donation series, we covered all the adaptation of Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House. I think we have to start there. I mean, if you saw the 1999 Jan de Bont haunting movie, that's what this was supposed to be. The two Stevens came together, King would write it, Spielberg would direct it, and it would come out as a big special effects horror show in theaters in 1999. And as much as I would have loved to have seen that, creative differences beg to differ. What I heard, Arnie, I don't know if you have any more to this, King, what he turned in those pages was too subtle. Spielberg was looking for special effects, big visual set pieces. And he, if it's anything like this TV movie, I can understand why he was feeling like this is not enough for a summer blockbuster.
Steven Spielberg and Stephen King can both be seen as giants in their field. Stephen King, one of the best-selling American authors of all time. Steven Spielberg, one of the most acclaimed populist directors of all time. And so the two of them coming together sounds like a great idea, except their impulses are radically different. It's like saying Chopin and Bon Jovi should really team up. It's just not gonna work.
Who's who? Is Spielberg Chopin? Because I think King is Bon Jovi.
And so the two of them had the idea of doing a haunted house story. It was Spielberg who said, let's do a haunted house. And King was like, I've always wanted to do a haunted house story. Now I'm like, King, you have done many haunted house stories.
Yeah.
The Shining is a haunted house story. Salem's Lot is kind of a haunted house story. But King felt like he hadn't done one, and he was going back to Shirley Jackson's novel, The Haunting of Hill House, came out in the 50s, and was going to write a new story inspired by that book and heavily influenced by that book.
Absolutely. And just to check, Brock, have you read that? Have you seen any of the movie adaptations? Do you know the work?
Yes, back in college I read the book, and I've seen The Haunting, the version with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Liam Neeson. I may have watched an earlier one, if it was Vincent Price, and that was it. I might be confusing it with another haunted house story.
There was a guy that looks just like Vincent Price, but it is not Vincent Price.
Okay.
And that is the one to watch.
Isn't there a Vincent Price one, though, where he comes to the house late that we reviewed? Was that just Hell House?
Yeah, and people get it confused. Having no connection to Shirley Jackson other than a title that sounds like it is Shirley Jackson's novel, The House on Haunted Hill is the Vincent Price work. Nothing to do with this.
Yes, I've seen that one, for sure.
So King in 96 gave Spielberg the idea for Rose Red, and Spielberg's like, let's do that. I don't know that Spielberg was going to direct, but he was going to produce and be involved in. And so King went and wrote his script, and this is where the two realized King's chocolate and Spielberg's peanut butter do not taste great together, because Spielberg said, we need more action, we need more thrills, we need more effect sequences, and King's like, no, I want this to be more horror, I want this to be more scary. I think the Spielberg of the early 80s, who made Poltergeist, produced or directed, whatever you believe, is a guy who would have gone with King's more horrific vision. The Spielberg post-Hook of the 90s was not going to go that direction, and so they mutually agreed to part ways. King wrote Spielberg a check to buy back his script and take it wherever he wanted to go. And if this isn't the biggest step down in history, King went from Steven Spielberg to Mick Garris and said, I have this script I'd like you to make. And you want to know the worst part? Mick Garris is like, I don't want to do this. If Mick Garris says no, you know you have shit on your fingertips.
Yeah, well, I was actually wondering, because we've covered a lot of Stephen King on network television, where this project eventually lands, 3 nights on ABC in 2002. Yeah, most of it has been directed by Mick Garris, and most of it has been pretty terrible, and we put that at the feet of Mick Garris. So the fact that Mick Garris is not here to make Rose Red has me a little bit optimistic.
So King went to producer Mark Carliner on Friday, June 18th, 1999, and that date will be important in a moment.
I think I know.
Yeah, me too.
Carliner was the producer for that awful Shining miniseries, as well as that Storm of the Century miniseries. Carliner said, yeah, we're going to do this as a feature film. So short. And so King said, I'm going to start revising my script Monday, June 21st. But on Saturday, June 19th, 1999, a truck tried to save us from this miniseries.
That's a nice spin on that, too. We talked about this with Dreamcatcher, that the whole thing was written when he was on the opioids, right, from the car accident. So we have 2 things to thank him for because of that accident.
Yeah, this actually was written before Dreamcatcher. This was the first thing he wrote post-accident, but because it's a production, not something that King can just hand to a publisher who will print it without reading it, that this took longer to come out. This came out after Dreamcatcher, but King talked about after his accident, he wasn't sure if he could ever write again. He was on a lot of opioids to kill the pain, and he used to write 8 hours a day, 4 hours rewriting an old script or manuscript to polish it, 4 hours writing something new. Here, he was really working hard to do just 45 minutes a day, longhand, because he couldn't type. But this project, Rose Red, was what got him back saying, I can continue to write after this accident. So he worked on this, and that this is the most Stephen King self-aware quote ever. I'm not a taker-outer, I'm a putter-inner. We know, King, you are too long and cannot be edited. And so he decided this would be a better mini-series that goes for 6 hours instead of a movie that goes for 2.
And it should just be said that he was having a lot of success, at least, ratings-wise, with that as a format. For all throughout the 90s, starting with Tim Curry's It, that had gone well for him. And, we hate The Shining, but I think that it was, at least in King's mind, considered a successful revision, something that cued closer to his work. So it makes sense to me that he would like this format. I will just go ahead and say, I don't think that this is the place that King has ever thrived. I don't want to see multiple nights of any King's work. I don't think I've recommended any of them. Again, I'm mad that it's on ABC, but I'm glad that it's not in Mick Garris's hands.
I always thought it made sense that they do those long, long books like It, In the Stand. It seems to make a lot of sense that television would be the right format for him. Now, obviously, maybe not network television, maybe HBO, but back then, they didn't do these sort of things on HBO. Nowadays, I think a remake maybe of The Stand on over there would be a very good idea.
Yeah, I want to parse this out because this is the last. Let's, have a celebration, a toast, pour one out for network TV Stephen King. We are not covering any more miniseries made for ABC, CBS, NBC with Stephen King's name on it. Now, there are other cable and, prime kind of, HBO will have a series, but we won't be talking this again.
So here, when Mick Garris turns you down, let's go back to Craig R. Baxley, who did Storm of the Century to much rating success. And again, we talked about him with Storm of the Century, but his movies, Action Jackson, guilty pleasure of mine. I Come in Peace, Brown Arrow for me. I really love that as one to laugh at. And then Stone Cold with Brian Bosworth, Sniper 2 with Tom Berenger. We're not talking an auteur.
Well, he was a stuntman. It should be said the reason why you're listing all these C and D list action movies is because he had spent decades in the 70s and 60s falling through glass and doing all of that stuff. So, that was his trade. That's what he knew, and that's what he knew how to direct when they let him. But yes, how he found Stephen King, I'm not exactly sure. But it's dry. What I would say about Storm of the Century is it's not visually particularly interesting. It's a drab-looking thing. Because of that, it also means it doesn't have the flights of fancy that I feel like Mick Garris will put in there, that just some of those visuals in those Mick Garris things are just embarrassing, frankly.
Forgive me for asking, wouldn't ABC, who is producing this stuff, were they blinded by the name like the publishers are, Stephen King? Why wouldn't they go into this with, we want this director, or maybe have a producer they like working that would put it together? I know they're not a movie studio, but I don't get, they have no input at all about who the people are involved.
Well, notice Stephen King is an executive producer of this, and Stephen King has brought ratings success to them time and time again, no matter who the director was, including Storm of the Century, which was directed by this guy.
Yeah. Baxley had a hit, so to speak. So, well, let's keep that success going. And I will say Storm of the Century is, in terms of these things, better than most.
And ABC went all in on this. This thing had a $35 million budget. That is huge for television for 3 nights. Of course, it aired during sweeps, but still, to give these guys $35 million to go to Washington State and film on locations in Seattle and around Seattle is just enormous. And King had a vision for how to promote this. Now, remember, we're talking 1999, we're talking 2000, even though this came out in 2002. He's like, well, Blair Witch really convinced people it was real. So let's do Blair Witch for Rose Red. And ABC put a lot of money into a promotional effort to try and sell this as a real event. I don't know how much you guys know, but they put up a fake website that you can still see on the web archive, the Wayback Machine. I posted a link to our social media yesterday. They put up a fake website for Beaumont University that has like admissions page and housing, student life, departments, and all of this information about the university. Of course, it really took me back. First of all, the website design is so clunky, and I forgot that in 2001, 2002, websites just looked like absolute turds. And then you go to most of the pages, and I forgot that back then it was normal to have those under construction pages when you were still working on getting the content together. So that's all out there. They also put on television like a week before this aired, Unlocking Rose Red, The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, a 30-minute special purported to be a documentary with the quote-unquote real people involved. So they had an actress who is not Nancy Travis saying, I am Joyce Reardon, the real Joyce Reardon. I'm the one who's studying this. Stephen King is making a dramatization of my research, but I'm the real Joyce Reardon, and this is the real story of Ellen Rimbauer and her rose red mansion. And I watched this. It was included on the DVD. It is cheesy as hell. It is cheap as hell, but it made good use of the flashback scenes that we're going to talk about from Rose Red to be like quote-unquote archival footage or dramatic recreations. And it also reminded me of like those alien autopsy shows that were big on Fox in the 90s.
Yeah, that's what I want to say, is that if you're saying this is cheesy, that's what you want. You wouldn't want a polished documentary running on TV, because in the 90s, what ran on TV were really schlocky things. And it sounds like this postmodernism is almost a commentary on how we package the supernatural more than it was trying to sell you on the idea that you should believe this.
Apparently this worked. According to things I've read on Stephen King Reddits and fan pages and things, some people, much like Blair Witch, believed Rose Red was based on real events when this miniseries aired.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's always a sucker born every minute, but I mean, if anyone wanted to do the research, it would quickly fall apart.
But, you know, again, they had the fake university webpage. They tried to put this online on TV, and we'll talk about it in a moment, in print as a real event.
Yeah, I don't think when I saw Blair Witch that I had any belief that it was anything other than a carefully studied mockumentary. We knew when it hit theaters, it wasn't real. The very first people to see it thought it was a snuff film, but I would think they don't air that kind of stuff on television. I would think most of the viewing audience, again, particularly coming from Stephen King, knows that this is a work of fiction, and they're hoping it's, as good as The Shining, the Kubrick one.
Well, like I told you when we reviewed the Blair Witch Project, a really good friend of mine, who I considered to be intelligent, when that movie came out, said to me, you know, Arnie, I don't think it's actually real. Like, he thought it might have been, but then he thought it didn't. And I said to him, I don't think it is, because I saw the actress on Leno last night. But he believed for a while that it was real, and then started to have doubts.
That he actually proves my point. That even people that were told the lie, when they view the result, go, oh, this is not it. Yeah, didn't happen.
But I think it's also people might buy into the fun a little bit after a
Sure.
while. And it's a lot of fun to see how far they go with the ruse. And that's kind of fun too. It's a very good promotional tool. It's been played out at this point, but maybe 10 years after, it's one of those things that people still think is a good idea, even though it was pretty much done.
I like it. I mean, I like postmodernism. I like things that go beyond the experience itself. This is something that asks you to go beyond the source material, go beyond Shirley Jackson, go beyond even Stephen King, and go explore in the world. My comparative is Twin Peaks. I was getting some Twin Peaks from this, partly because of the Seattle kind of connection, and there's some synth music that feels like it copies the TV show, but also because it has this fake diary that was published, and this is probably the only book we're talking about in the Stephen King retrospective that was not written by Stephen King, but used to promote this. It's the purported diary of Ellen Rimbauer, the woman who first becomes possessed by the house.
Oh, this gets so meta. It's hysterical to me. Because, yes, King had this idea of let's put out a book around the time of this miniseries. And he got his bandmate. Do you guys know that Stephen King has a band?
I mean, the way that all rich people have bands and things. That, like, okay, yeah, you get some friends together and play. I believe it's a bunch of authors, Amy Tan and other people, maybe John Grisham.
Dave Barry.
Okay, yeah.
Matt Groening from The Simpsons.
Oh, come on.
Maya Angelou sometimes plays with them.
Right, yeah, that's friends getting together. I get what that is.
Yeah, but they actually did charity gigs where they'd go and play in front of people.
Yeah, charity would be us sitting there pretending and clapping like we enjoyed it.
But that's kind of a fun thing to see.
I'd rather sit through a Corey Feldman performance than his band, which is called the Rock Bottom Remainders.
Look, guys, if I was at a function and Maya Angelou got up there with a flute or something, I would be really happy to see that.
Of course.
Come on.
Who wouldn't sit and watch that for 5 minutes?
I would totally watch that.
Yeah, but I'm not buying the CD.
Or the t-shirt merch. Yeah.
Well, one of the members of this rock band is author Ridley Pearson, who does not have the name recognition of a Dave Barry or a Matt Groening or a Stephen King.
No, I don't know him at all.
No.
Who is this person?
He had written a number of mystery novels and thriller novels in the 80s and 90s.
Okay. Like one of those you see at the supermarket, like there's like 80 in this series you've never heard of and never will read.
Exactly. There is a novel series featuring characters I've never heard called John Knox and Grace Chu. And it started in the 80s with a book called Undercurrents. And then he has another series with Walt Fleming, which I feel like I've heard, but it started in the 80s and went till 2010. So he has published stuff on his own, none of which I've heard of.
Yeah, it's dime store novels. I get it. It's what a lot of authors end up doing, print it out on pulp paper and it's gone in 6 months.
It's literal Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
That's where it came from. Yeah, this is right.
Well, I think this guy probably has his fans, and like we've often said with working actors, if he can make his living as a writer, that is better than most, and so I'm not going to diss him just because I haven't read his stuff, but he's a friend of Stephen King, and Stephen King is looking for somebody to write the prose for a book of diagrams and schematics of Rose Red.
Yeah, okay. So I have read his work because I did read this diary. He wrote it. He's the author.
Yeah, it was his idea that instead of just putting some text around some drawings of the house, that a diary was mentioned in King's script repeatedly, that let's just make this a full diary that has drawings of the house in it and some other drawings in it. And so he created this prequel novel that then King took and did two things with. First, he made Pearson publish it under a pseudonym of Joyce Reardon, so that it's like the main character of this. It says edited by Joyce Reardon, that she found the diary and has published the most important excerpts in this epistolary novel.
Yeah, kind of like the Diary of Laura Palmer was written by Laura Palmer, but of course it wasn't. It was David Lynch's daughter, so yeah. I get it. A carefully constructed ruse to perpetuate this lie.
But then King followed the ruse up further by telling him, put in the introduction that this diary was found by an author from Maine, so that his fans will think Stephen King wrote this, and it was thought King wrote this, or maybe his wife Tabitha King, who is also a writer, wrote this.
No.
Yeah, she is.
This book jumped on the bestseller lists under the rumor that it was actually a King book. And so all the Stephen King fans raced out to buy this, thinking it was a King book in sheep's clothing, when in fact it would come out years later, it was this Ridley Pearson.
It's not bad. I mean, I will just say, just to jump to my thoughts about the work, I read it after I watched this miniseries, so it didn't spoil anything but it more or less follows the flashbacks. You see Ellen go to Africa and her obsession with seances, losing her daughter April in the house, and building up to the murder of the husband in the tower. It more or less hits all the notes. It doesn't offer anything new, except I don't know that you pick up in the miniseries that her relationship with her maid is based on lesbian lust.
In one moment you do. I mean, it's clear as day.
Yeah, I think it's kind of there, but it's on ABC in 2002, so they're really not going to heavily dramatize that. But in the book, it's pretty spoken to.
And you're right, I hadn't thought about Laura Palmer, but the same way Laura Palmer described discovering her sexuality, discussed her first masturbation session, and then discussed sex with Bobby and Bob and all these other people in her diary. This diary of Ellen Rimbauer gets pretty bawdy at times, but yet it's set in the early 1900s, and so it uses some chaste language. I actually had to Google certain things because I'm like, what the hell is she talking about? Like when she talks about this illness carried by men but inflicted upon women, and that's also a quote from this movie. I'm like, what the hell is that? Oh, it turns out that was what you called syphilis in the early 1900s.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, social diseases, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine, though, like, he undid my corset, And 10 minutes later, we were moving around. I mean, come on. Like, that kind of stuff is silly and fun.
Oh, no, this got much more explicit than that. Like,
oh, it did.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I would equate it to a bodice ripper. You know, I would say it's probably like your standard romance novel language. Truthfully, what kept coming to mind for me when I read this, and it may be because we just covered it and I read that book, but Gone with the Wind, only set like maybe 20 years later, you know, set in the early 1900s, but telling of a woman who comes from modest means, who marries a man for money and becomes very wealthy and has children, one of whom dies, you know, or disappears in this case, and comes to resent her husband and has this named home, be it Tara or be it Rose Red. I just kept thinking that this was very Gone with the Wind. I enjoyed the book much more than I was expecting to. I bought it for $10 on eBay, hardcover, first printing, obviously not a collector's item. And I was like, God, I gotta read this thing. And I started it before watching Rose Red and got into it. But then, you know, with our schedule of recording and the fact that Rose Red is like 4.5 hours, I watched some of Rose Red, then read more of the book, watched the rest of Rose Red, finished the book. So I kind of interspersed it, and this book is what the sequel to Rose Red is based on. When we discuss next week The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, it's adapting this book, which again was a bestseller when this series aired.
Although, just again, to clarify, what's in the book is also in this miniseries. I don't know why we need more of what we already see, other than maybe we're left wanting by Rose Red. I guess we should find that out. Arnie, why don't you give them the plot, and we'll talk about this house.
Nancy Travis is college psychology professor Dr. Joyce Reardon. Her focus on studying paranormal psychology has undermined her professional reputation to the point her department head, Dr. Carl Miller, played by David Dukes, has gotten her tenure revoked. But Joyce has a plan to salvage her reputation and her career. She's taking a group of psychics to the supposedly haunted mansion Rose Red. Built in the early 1900s, the house has a history of death and disappearances, including the suicide of its owner, John P. Rimbauer, and the later disappearance of his wife, Ellen. Joyce is dating Steve Rimbauer, the grandson of John and Ellen and the last surviving heir to the Rimbauer lineage. He agrees to let Joyce access the house over Memorial Day weekend. Joyce is convinced the house is haunted, but, as she calls it, a dead cell, and that bringing actual psychics will wake up the spirits. The group of mentalists she's bringing consists of automatic writer Kathy Kramer, played by Judith Ivey. I kind of think that's Stephen King, an automatic writer. Like, he can just put himself in cruise control and 800 pages comes out. A man who can see ghosts and past events, Emery Waterman, played by Matt Ross. Telepathic Nick Hardaway, played by Julian Sands. Future seer Vic Kandinsky, played by Kevin Teig. And a woman who can get insights on items she touches, named Pam Asbury, played by Bones' Emily Deschanel. But the most powerful psychic of all is young, autistic Annie Wheaton, played by Kimberly J. Brown. Annie's parents refuse to let her partake in this research, but Annie's older sister Rachel, called Sister or Sissy, played by 2.5 Men's Melanie Linsky, takes Annie anyway and goes along as Annie's caretaker. To undermine Joyce, Dr. Miller sends college newspaper photographer Kevin Bollinger to take damning photos of the group. Bollinger gets to Rose Red first and is abducted and killed by the ghosts there. When Joyce and her group arrive, it does start paranormal activities. In the night, Pam sees an apparition of Bollinger who leads her to the garden where Pam drowns. Then a ghost of Pam leads Vic in the garden where a statue comes to life and scares Vic into dying of a heart attack. Emery's overprotective mother Patricia gets worried about her son and goes to Rose Red, and Dr. Miller gets a phone call from a ghost telling him Bollinger killed himself, so he also goes to the mansion. Both are attacked by ghosts and killed. And it seems Annie is the battery powering the house. Everyone is trapped inside until Annie, trying to reach a dollhouse on a tall shelf, falls and is knocked unconscious. The house unlocks then, but no one knows to flee. When Annie wakes up, the house closes all doors and windows again, severing 4 fingers off Emery's hand, which was in a door jamb. Emery realizes Annie is keeping them trapped and advocates killing the little girl so the others can live. But Joyce is obsessed with her research and wants to keep the experiment going at any cost. She promises Annie the dollhouse if Annie keeps the house locked with everyone inside. The house starts to awaken telepathic abilities in Steve, and so he tries to undermine Joyce's control of Annie by psychically talking to the young girl. Nick and Kathy get separated from the group and attacked by a ghost, and Nick sacrifices himself so Kathy can escape. And Kathy has a vision that the primary ghost, House Matriarch Ellen Rimbauer, actually murdered her philandering husband. Despite Joyce's protests, Steve creates a psychic link between Kathy and Annie, and the ghost of Ellen Rimbauer appears, giving Steve a hammer. Maybe to keep building the house, maybe to kill the others with a hammer, but Steve uses the hammer to smash the mirror from which Ellen appeared. Annie unlocks the doors and the group escapes, but Joyce, insane, stays behind where she is killed by Rose Red spirits and becomes one of them. 6 months later, Emery, Kathy, Steve, Annie, and Rachel reunite at the house one final time before it's torn down to make condos. The ghost of Joyce watches them from the window, accompanied by the other spirits of Rose Red, as credits roll. Now, I just want to say, I do most of the plot summaries for Now Playing. I try to keep them to 1 page typed. I got this to about 1 1/3 pages typed for 4.5 hours. That means this should have been a movie. This should not have been a miniseries. I was able to skip entire hours of the series without a single word in a plot summary because it doesn't matter.
But we've been here before, Arnie. I mean, don't play ignorance. You know what a Stephen King miniseries is, and you know it's filled with filler. To be expected. What I was curious about, I mean, I think you, in your plot summary, if you know the Shirley Jackson work, you hear a lot of that novel. I mean, about the 5 investigators and the special girl that the house targets and all of that stuff. You feel like, okay, this is an expansion of this old Gothic novel. But as we get started here, this is maybe the one time where I feel like King is talking about a different novel, one of his own. We get Carrie. And a scene that I don't think was ever filmed in any of the Carrie movie adaptations. But if you read the book, she got in a fight with her mother and brought rocks down on the house. And they're going to do that as a way of establishing Annie.
They did put the rocks, I remember really, really poor CGI in that TV pilot for the Carrie TV series that we reviewed.
Yes, that is another winning miniseries for King.
And then what I didn't know until researching this was that scene from Carrie was actually ripped off of The Haunting of Hill House, where there is a rain of rocks. Mm-hmm. So while King is ripping himself off endlessly in this story, this is him homaging himself and homaging Hill House with one fell swoop, as this girl rains rocks down on the house where a dog bit her. And the dog's been put to sleep. And, I mean, the owners of the dog are in there. It's Les Nessman from WKRP in Cincinnati. And then his wife, who I don't know from anything. And they're, like, sad about their dog. And the wife is like, the dog never bit anybody. This Annie is something bad for our dog to attack her. And then Annie ruins these people's house. She took their dog, and now she's taking their house as rocks fall from the sky only on their house for revenge for the dog biting her.
Now, let me put a fine point on what I think you're saying, because I have the same problem. Annie is our central character, and we're expected to like her. But by introducing her this way, I think she's Damien from The Omen. And I don't like her. I think she's evil. And you tell me that a dog was killed because it bit her because something's wrong with her? Something is wrong with her. I'm with the dog.
Well, you guys are blaming the victim here. I liked the scene immensely, and I thought it introduced this young woman who has these powers, and she's so little, she's so young, that it's kind of a petulant thing to do. So I didn't think the bad seed, I didn't think Damien the Omen. I thought this was a very strong opening, and unfortunately for the rest of the movie, or especially this episode, starting it off like this gave me false expectations and false hope, because I thought this was a pretty cool opening and some pretty good special effects for a television movie. I completely understood this character. I did not get evil off of her.
You liked her. You felt sympathy for her.
At this moment, I understood with the parents' reactions to what's going on. I completely understood. Now, I think it's important to mention to you both that last October, I was bitten by my neighbor's dog. So perhaps I also sympathized with her a little bit. By the way, I did not get superpowers from that, and I was pretty upset about it. But I do understand where she's coming from. But beyond that silly thing to mention, because of the parents' reaction, because of the over-the-top acting by Les Nessman and wife, I completely understood this character. I did not think she was evil.
Oh, and you mentioned the parents. The way this story starts is we're introduced to little Annie playing in her room. She's coloring and listening to old music that's cheap for ABC to buy the rights to, because it's only for that reason that a little girl in... It says it's 1991 Seattle. That's the only reason why this girl would be listening to big band staples. But we hear the parents arguing outside, and I thought we would never see them. These are terrible performances. I mean, these are worse than local stage production performances. I couldn't believe, I was dreading this. I'm like, there are actors I know in this miniseries, but are they all going to be as bad as these parents having this conversation? Why do you treat me like a fool? Stop it. I'm like, this is miserable.
Yes, but you also understand this. And so how the rocks come down is she is trying to vent her anger. Her parents are arguing in the other room. She's feeling overwhelmed. She's blasting her, was it Summer of 42, whatever that song is? And like, you don't really blast that song. You gotta like listen to it. And so she's using the crayons, and as she's coloring fervently, the rocks come down because she's overdone with emotion, right? Because her parents are fighting and she doesn't know how to control herself. So all of this works. Yes, the acting by the parents is dreadful, horrible acting, but they got the point across. Isn't that the job here, right?
Here's the thing. I don't call it bad acting. I call it Stephen King miniseries. Like, I just feel like he uses crayons. He uses big, bold colors. Like, you expect Dee Snider to burst into, like, what do you want to do with your life, kind of. Like, yeah, the parents just don't understand, and this dad is ridiculous. I don't understand this dad. Because this dad will be like rolling his eyes and sitting there reading the paper the whole time. Like he's so annoyed that his daughter is this telekinetic monster, but is not willing to have her sent away. Is wanting to live there. Like is just willing to put up with this for a decade.
Not exploiting her powers for money and power. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like, we're gonna get $12,000 for this? No? It doesn't look like he's working.
$12,000 wasn't enough to send her away. They need $20,000 a year for the school that they need to put her in.
You get my point. He should be a money grubber, and he acts like he wants to trap her here. And that doesn't make any sense. It made sense in the Shirley Jackson novel. The main character was a slave to her dying mother and could not leave. But in this case, why Annie has to stay here and why the sister wants to get money to send her to a special school just feels contrived.
But that all comes when we get to 2001. This, again, we start in this 1991, and then we jump 10 years later, and that's where we're introduced to, I think, our real main character, our top billed character, Nancy Travis as Dr. Joyce Reardon, teaching a class at Beaumont University. Think Thad Beaumont from The Dark Half.
I won't, because I don't remember that, but okay.
Okay.
It's the main character of The Dark Half, and she is there talking about psychic powers and things, and there's David Dukes literally standing in the wings, just scowling at her.
Yeah, they have a close-up on the building. It's Windsor Psychology Building. So the rub is, we are here to tell real scientific research about the way the mind works. And this crazy lady that I think used to be a child psychologist is now talking about haunted houses are real. And so I kind of understand his point. I think, again, King likes to use dramatic colors. All his villains have to be like super black hat. I wish this guy wasn't such a piss pants. But I mean, I get why he wouldn't want his university's reputation to be soiled by superstition.
Yes, but the way he is fervently going after Joyce is not justified.
Yeah, it's Stephen King writing.
Yeah, it's just really bad and over the top. And I questioned constantly. All you needed to do was like something about like his wife was her friend and she blames her. Something even more over the top to make it you understand. Because this guy was played for laughs in Ghostbusters, right? This is not that. This guy is supposed to be a real antagonist, but there's nothing justifying his over-the-top crazy reactions. Not one thing.
No, nothing.
Not only that, but the class is totally full. Like, she's bringing in the money. Like, I mean, people want to take this class. Let her do her thing, right? Like, this spook hunt should be funded if this is going to bring luster to the university. But it does. It feels like a personal grudge that doesn't get explained. Like, so much in this miniseries, we get taste of what might be going on in the undercurrents, but I have no understanding about why the psych department head hates this woman with such passion.
And what he plans to do with this Bollinger who works for a college newspaper asking gotcha questions mid-class about, are you using college funds for your crazy research? And taking a photo later on of her with some psychics holding hands, like that's the most damning evidence in the world. I mean, if you caught them having an orgy,
right,
you know, that would be one thing.
Having sex with a student, and that will be a problem. But yeah, universities will overlook a lot. As someone that had worked at a university for many, many years, I can speak to this. They will overlook a lot of eccentricity if you bring in the money.
More, my sister has worked in academia her whole life, and I asked her, what does it take to terminate tenure? Because tenure is what you strive for. My sister talked about how great it was when she got tenured at her university. And that pretty much means you're untouchable. You don't have to do much of anything anymore, and you can just coast and they can't touch you. 9 times out of 10, if you are terminating somebody's tenure, not only must the university get involved, but the faculty and board must get involved, the upper level administrators, and then if it's around something like free speech, like this would, it would have media attention, lawsuits, the ACLU would be rushing to the professor's aid, all of this. I mean, revoking tenure takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of evidence. So that you can just have this guy go, oh, you didn't get my message on your answering machine? Your tenure's revoked. You're out of a job.
I think he did mention there was a committee that voted or something. But your point is, this isn't reality, and I will just go ahead and say, no, it's a give me. We have to understand they have to work in here that there are forces working against this investigation. Do we need that? Do we need to have evil college professor trying to thwart their efforts? I guess if it's 3 nights, you do have to do that. This is going to be the only death of this first 2 hours. The first night is the fact that this psych head is going to, browbeat a poor student reporter into going into that house first. That will be the first victim. So you need it for that reason.
I have no idea what he has over Bollinger, too, where he's like, you're about to graduate. What does a budding reporter need from the head of the psychology department to help him in the real world?
Yeah, I mean, this is not breaking Watergate. I will say that.
Arnie, I took it to be this kid just wants that big story to shop around for a job. But that's me helping the movie. That's really what it is, because I did not understand the relationship either. And again, why this kid would go along with this cockamamie scheme if he's just about to graduate anyway does not make any sense. But again, as Stuart points out, we need to have someone die. And I guess this is like bargain bin Christian Slater goes in the house first and dies. So that's really what we need him for.
I got James Spader, but I know what you mean. Like, same kind of slimy guy that you don't like him for, and you're not even sure why. There's just something about him that gives you an ick. And so we're just rooting for him. He basically goes in there. There's a solarium, there's a health room, and bees are there, and he's grabbed by something we never see and will never be confirmed. The house just kills him.
Right, but the only thing that I found notable, but in hindsight, was that Zarita answers the door, and we learn later she's a ghost. So we didn't know that, and that was pretty cool if you look back and think about it after the fact. But yes, it's incredibly obtuse, but at this point in the show, when everything's being set up, because the whole first episode is really just one exposition dump after another, meet everybody going on, I'm willing to go along with, ooh, the house is spooky and it killed him. What killed him? Like, I thought that was effective, to be honest. Like, that was a good way to start with a mysterious death.
And I knew instantly that this was a ghost opening the door because he's at this dilapidated mansion. There shouldn't be anybody there. I didn't have to wait till later to know that this housekeeper was undead.
Fair enough.
No, we actually know it at the time. If you're paying attention to the backstory, about 20 minutes into this, Nancy Travis is going to give a orientation lecture where, yes, the whole history of the house, the whole diary that you could read is just given to you in little chunks. And they're all pretty much the same moment. Some dude will get killed or some woman will go missing for about 50 years, right? From the start of the house being laid the foundation, some worker, some teamster gets a gun and shoots somebody, all the way to Ellen herself disappearing in 1950 and some tourist, it turned into a tourist trap years later. They shut that down when somebody wandered off the tour and they found her bloody handbag and never found her.
And this is based a lot off of a real place, the Winchester House in San Jose.
Yes.
Which, have either of you been there?
Yes, it's totally a tourist trap.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea is it's going to be so spooky because the man that made the Winchester gun, his house is haunted by all the Native Americans that gun was used on, supposedly. Well, and apparently his wife was so crazed about them getting her that she kept expanding the house.
She was told as long as the house kept getting built on, she would never die. And I've been there too. It is insane. There are literally staircases to nowhere. Like, there's not a second floor, but there's a staircase that goes from the first floor and ends at a wall. And it's just this labyrinthine, enormous house.
You know what? I was a little underwhelmed. It's not a fun house. To me, it isn't like, wow, this house is so crazy, you're not going to believe. It's mostly a house from the 1890s that, yes, it just, for a while, the tour goes on too long. And it's because this woman, I was told it was because she was trying to avoid the Native American spirits. And she thought if the house were ever completed, they would get her. That she would die for that reason.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Native American spirits. I'll be honest, the tour was like 3 hours, and I got there an hour before closing, so they just let me wander on my own.
Okay.
So I just kind of wandered around the house trying not to get lost and looking at what I thought was the inspiration for the Zoltan machine in Big that's in the lobby of the Winchester House.
Yeah, they try too hard. They're trying too hard to say this is a haunted house when you're just taking a tour of an old house. It's really what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. But it's a cool old house with crazy architecture because it was not properly planned.
I mean, you're talking about a couple closets and stuff. Like, I was completely underwhelmed with how profoundly unscary this house was.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it as a tourist destination, but I find it interesting as a historical curiosity, and Stephen King is definitely going with that for this because we're going to find out Ellen Rimbauer, just like Mrs. Winchester, believed as long as Rose Red was getting built on, that she would never die.
And I don't think you understand that from this miniseries. Brock, I'd be curious to know what your take on the drive behind the expansion was.
I thought she was crazy. They mentioned it constantly, that if they keep building the house, then she can't die. That was definitely laid in the house. I also thought it was an obsession thing that she and her companion, her friend, her maid, her lady-in-waiting, I don't know exactly what her role was besides her living there. I thought the house had to keep growing, and eventually, as they mentioned, it kept growing on its own because it got haunted. So that is what I took from it, that the house took a sentience. And so she was obsessed because the house made her do it, and they promised her eternal life. That is how I took it to be.
Now, what I love from the book is that the reason the house is haunted, Stephen King stopped doing this. It was built on a Native American burial ground, and just like Poltergeist, he did start this with Spielberg, they did move the bodies this time and burned them to cover up all evidence that this was a burial ground. And so it was the spirits of the Native Americans going after the people who built this house.
Well, they walk away from that theory. Later, she says maybe it's not. It's not the Indians. But that is a thought early on in the diary. And yes, it is a cliche. But just to make my point, what is said in the diary is the reason why this woman wanted to build the house was because she wanted to bleed her husband dry of money. She was mad that he ended up being such a philanderer. She found out about his cheating and sort of his debaucherous sexual appetites. And her revenge was, well, I'm going to make you pay for it by building a new wing to this house.
That's how it started, but then a psychic did tell her, you'll never die so long as you keep building, and so she just obsessively kept building and all of that.
It's a cool idea. I want to be very clear because I think we're being kind of negative to this not particularly great first night of entertainment, but I do like the idea of a house that is alive, that feeds on the people that live there, and that can trick people into expanding it. That's its way of eating is an interesting idea. I certainly think it worked in Shirley Jackson, in part because the main character was a spinster. She was homebound, and then she lost her home, and this was the house to tell her, you don't need men will trick you, come to me. And so that story, it really works. Here, the question is, what does this house need? Maybe from Ellen, but we're not really going to get much of Ellen's story here. What does it need from Nancy Travis and her psychic friends? That's what I, even after having watched all 3 nights, can't tell you. Why does it want any of these people? I know I don't.
Yeah, that is not explained to me other than just the house is evil, but again, King is ripping himself off. This is The Shining. Instead of a hotel, we have a big house. We have ghosts there who used to live there, who are, nefarious. We're bringing psychics into the house, just like we brought Danny Torrance, who had the shine, into the Overlook. And we don't really know what the ghosts of the Overlook wanted either.
No, of course, but that's part of its mystery. And I think one of the things that people like about the Kubrick movie is it doesn't spell it all out for you. Here, I'm left wanting. And again, it's my lead-in to talk about who these investigators are. We're introduced to 6 people who supposedly have unique gifts. Do you like any of them? I don't. I mean, I really don't like this cast.
I like these actors.
Why?
I was excited by this cast.
I agree completely.
Tell me why. And don't give me some bullshit about Warlock. Julian Sands in Warlock is shit. And that whole series is shit. So don't tell me you love it.
We'll go down the line. Let's start with our Joyce Reardon, Nancy Travis. I have enjoyed her quite a bit in film and television. My wife absolutely loves So I Married an Axe Murderer, so we have watched that. I've probably seen that movie 50 times in my life now. And then I also thought she was really fun on the TV series Duckman, where she did one of the voices there. I loved that TV series, and everyone involved with that was good. I thought she was good in Chaplin. I mean, I rewatched Chaplin not long ago.
Well, she wasn't Charlie Chaplin. What was she in that movie? You're praising her for Duckman and So I Married an Axe Murderer and Chaplin. She has not done much. This is a lightweight, quote-unquote, star to carry this movie.
She is also on a TV show or 2 over the years. She may have been that Tim Allen one.
Yeah.
She is my least favorite. When I saw she was on this cast, I was not happy. The rest of the cast I like, but I do not like her. I think she's not a very good actress. Anytime she's in something, I don't enjoy it. I have seen So I Married an Axe Murderer, and I honestly felt that she couldn't play that role effectively either. The reason that thing works is Mike Myers. I don't like this particular actress, and her leading this cast is bad. The supporting actors, on the other hand, are a different story.
I want to point out, I just say I have goodwill towards Nancy Travis.
There we go.
She is awful in this.
Thank you. Thank you.
She is just absolutely abysmal. She is the second worst thing about this entire series, is that they put it on her shoulders to have this arc of starting off as a seemingly reasonable paranormal psychology professor who's going to end as a super maniacal villain. She's taking the Jack Torrance arc, basically, of going to the Overlook and then becoming part of the Overlook, and she is as bad here as Steven Weber was in that Shining miniseries.
She's not good in this. Don't tell me you like her. She's not good in this. Typically, in this story, it's led by a man. And again, the sympathetic character is not who's leading the investigation, but the mousy woman that this head manipulates to bring her in. She should look terrible for wanting Annie so bad. And yet, I don't get that for the first 2 nights. I don't see her as exploiting a child until night 3. And then it's like a head spinning. We went from 0 to 100 of like, now I'm totally evil.
I get it in the second night. At the end of the second night, we'll talk about it, but that's where I realize it. However, I don't trust her from the very beginning because we see she's sleeping with Steve Rimbauer, who is, again, the last person alive from the Rimbauer family. And they're in bed together, and I'm wondering off the bat, is she using him? And I'm pretty sure she is, because there's a scene of them in bed together where she's just so obsessed with getting Annie, and he's trying to have a romantic moment.
Yeah, but he's younger, better looking, and richer, so I don't know, like, who's got the real power here.
He's not richer. He is broke. He's dead broke. That's why he's selling the house for condos.
He's rich broke. He's one of these like, oh, I got no liquid cash. He has a giant mansion in the middle of Seattle that, yes, he can sell at any point for condos, and I'm not crying for him. He's doing quite well. He's not living off of her. He doesn't need this, again, a college professor whose gig is parapsychology. No. I wish it did, Arnie. I wish it looked like an exploitive relationship. I wish we got that sense of their relationship being about her trying to get to the house and her obsession with the house.
I did get that.
I did not get that at all. I felt that he and her together, he really just wants to get rid of this place.
Yeah.
And that's all I got from him at all at this point. I actually thought he was a student and she's sleeping with him, and that was the most damning thing about it.
Yeah, he feels much younger than her. And in that way, it feels like she has the exploitation. But yeah, he's not her student. And again, they seem like a nice couple. They seem like they should be on Last Man Standing until night 3. And then it becomes, yeah, The Shining.
And he is 10 years younger than her, but that's, not a huge age difference. But as far as this actor who's playing Steve Rimbauer, I don't know, Matt Kieslar. We've talked about him. When I looked him up, I'm like, oh, well, we reviewed Scream 3. We reviewed that sci-fi series Dune. I don't remember who played the son of Harkonnen in that, but it's this guy.
Yeah, I mean, again, he, like many actors, he had his moment in the sun. Waiting for Guffman is a beloved little comedy. He appeared in some stuff in the 90s and then got swallowed by this house, I think. I think he's another victim of Rose Red. He's what you can get on a TV movie budget. Again, the way that it plays to me is, for the most part, they're in it together. He's got a house that's haunted. She wants to explore it before he sends in the wrecking ball. They don't seem dysfunctional at all.
Oh, I definitely got dysfunction off that scene of them in bed together where he's trying to get her attention and she's ignoring him, and the scene where she's on the phone with Rachel, who is Annie's older sister, and you see her offering Rachel, everybody else we see she's offering $5,000 to. But for Annie, $10,000, $12,000. And this guy is basically our Greek chorus of, you don't have $12,000 to spend on this. You're going broke on this. Why are you doing this? This guy, she is not simpatico with him in this relationship.
No, but that's a totally different matter. She's obsessed with the house and is willing to overspend to get Annie. And he's being reasonable in saying she's not worth 12 and you don't have it. But I don't see that that's impacting their relationship at all. And I ask the question again, why is Annie so key? I don't really like this actress or her performance. Is she the rebirth of Ellen? Is she the missing daughter, April? I don't really get it. I don't really get the connection between her and the house.
Oh, I don't either.
I actually thought when he was getting upset about the money that he was funding this because, as we mentioned before, he has money, right? So I thought she was spending his money. And that was something that I thought was at play the whole time.
They should have done that.
That's what I got off the scene.
That would have been better. That would have created more tension and would have given you more of the bickering and the stress as the weekend went on.
Again, the way I heard the story told from him is he's desperately in need to get rid of this mansion, The taxes are killing him. He has no money. And the only way he's going to get money is by selling the last thing in his family's line, which is this mansion.
Okay, but also hear that he was the son of an oil baron. So poor to him is different than poor to you and I.
No, he's the grandson of an oil baron whose father wasted that fortune. By the time it came to him, there was no money left. The oil baron died in 1922. Ellen disappeared in 1950, having squandered much more of the fortune on the house. And then Ellen's surviving son wasted more money. This guy is squeaking by, going to, of all things, a college professor. They make good livings, but they're not rich. I think he's more counting on her money than vice versa.
I wish I saw that movie.
Yeah, I don't see that.
I will reiterate, I hear what you're saying. I think the case can be made for what you're saying. I don't think it's dramatized in any interesting way by these actors or by this writing. But you tell me, who do you like in this cast? You love this cast. What's grabbing you?
All right, so let's go through it. I don't know Annie. Kimberly J. Brown, when I looked her up, she is an unknown to me. Apparently, she's really well known for being in the Halloween Town series, which would have been around this time. It went from 98 to 04, kind of a spooky series, so she seems to make sense.
Disney stuff, there were movies, and Debbie Reynolds was in it. Yeah, my daughter loved that stuff.
Guiding Light. She was on a soap, and she did a little indie called Tumbleweeds that was acclaimed. But let me give her a favor. She would have been a young actress that had some good buzz behind her and some experience in the camera, and maybe she's ready to do this role. But you tell me why you like Annie. Why would you like Annie?
Oh, I do not like Annie in this show at all, except I guess there is some presumed empathy that works on me in that she is very young, she is exploited, she has mean parents, she's autistic and doesn't speak, and so I feel for her just the way I'd feel for a kicked dog. But I don't like this as a character. I don't necessarily care for this performance. It's not awful as compared to Nancy Travis and one other we'll get to, but she's fine.
I liked the actress. I don't think she had enough, and she's not experienced enough to really play what we need her to play. And my proof of that is I had no idea how old she was until really late in the show. They mentioned she was 15, but she's acting young. Now, I realize autism has different things. It's a spectrum, as they call it. But I don't think the way she's playing autistic here really plays. It plays like she's mentally challenged versus autistic smart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Intellectually disadvantaged. She doesn't understand what's going on around her. And I'm having a different experience. I'm thinking if she did that with the rocks, when she gets in this house, she's going to have a free-for-all and be awful. This house is going to corrupt her because she's so capable of petty, mean acts.
I mean, I thought she'd be Carrie. When you see her as a psychic, and again, if you read the Carrie book, Carrie is not only telekinetic, but she is psychic and pyrokinetic and can cause rains of rocks. So this is little Carrie. Carrie was sympathetic at the beginning when she was so put upon, but by the end, she's villainous and tearing down a town. So I thought we would have that Carrie arc here, that Annie would become menacing.
Yeah, what I'm expecting is it's the story of Rachel, her older sister, who will realize I don't have to try and parent and protect this child. She's too evil, and I will be able to stop calling myself sister. Like, it's crazy to me. She's like, just call me sister because I have no identity other than being this crazy girl's sister. And like, I assumed she was going to get with Steve and get away. I thought she could potentially, in a better written story, she could be a focal character that we see bloom.
What's funny is when I was looking at this cast list and I saw there was a character who they call Sister, obviously I thought it was going to be a nun. Mm-hmm. Why else would you call a character Sister if it's not a nun? But it's not a nun.
But she kind of is, right? Like, she's sexless and she feels like kind of like the main character in the Shirley Jackson novel. I haven't experienced life because I've been stuck at home trying to protect my younger sister from my mean parents. and I haven't seen The World yet, and this could be the story of her coming out. You know, it really could be.
And it's probably our best actress. I mean, yes, I know Melanie Linsky because she was the best thing on 2.5 Men. When she left the show as a regular character, I stopped watching, but she was the crazy neighbor who was obsessed with Charlie Sheen. She was a series regular, and I really enjoyed what she did. I was first introduced to her in Heavenly Creatures. That's also where I was first introduced to Peter Jackson, and she was amazing in Heavenly Creatures. I feel like Kate Winslet gets all the praise for that movie, but she was just as good as Winslet in that. And I've seen her in other stuff.
Yeah, Winslet went on and had the career that she, you know, a much more magnified career. And Linsky, I think, has found her voice in later life. You know, she didn't really work in anything but bit parts, but she is the star of a Showtime. It seems like they keep her in dark shows, though, like Yellow Jackets and Last of Us. You said she was even crazy in that sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's her specialty. There's a darkness to her, even though she seems like the girl next door.
What the crazy on 2.5 Men was completely over the top comedic stuff.
Sure. But my point is that sort of casting to type, she seems like a good girl, but with something extra. And that's kind of true here.
My favorite actor in this is Matt Ross. I thought his character was the most defined, and he made the most choices physically, vocally, and visually. I know him, of course, from Silicon Valley. He played the Steve Jobs character kind of guy, and he was just not a very smart man. If you know that role and his performance there, and then you see this, you can really see how talented an actor he is. He is able to take the stuff he's given here and make it work.
I disagree so strongly. Now, I do like this actor.
I knew this was the one you didn't like. I knew it.
I do like this actor. I have not watched Silicon Valley, but I did love the show Big Love. And he played the son of the cult leader in Big Love. And when he was first introduced, I didn't like his character, but they evolved that character until he became the big bad. And I went, wow, this guy had a transformation in front of my eyes during Big Love. So I was excited to see him here. Now, this character is so over the top. His name is Emery. Now, for those who don't remember, Emery is the middle name of Harold Lauder from The Stand. Harold Lauder in the book is the overweight, put upon nerd who lusts after the Molly Ringwald character and then ends up blowing up Nick, who was the Rob Lowe character. He was the villain in The Stand, the one who infiltrated the group because of his lust.
Yeah, you can see the theme here. This is Stephen King all over, is that bullied victims become the monster. And that, yes, he was another example of that.
With the same name.
I don't get the name thing. So the name is the middle name. That's intentional because people are supposed to remember the middle name. Is the middle name like a plot point or so important in that story that you would get it?
No, but look at this cast. We have Annie. Not Annie Wilkes, but Annie. We have Nick. Not Nick Andros, but Nick. We have Steve. Not Stephen Deshane from The Gunslinger, but Steve. We have Rachel. Not Rachel Creed from Pet Sematary, but Rachel. We have Emery, so I had to look this one up. If all these other characters, I knew all the rest of those off the top of my head, but who the hell is Emery? That is Harold Lauder, and this is the same type of character. And then we have Vic, not Victor Chris from It. We have Carl, not Carl Wilkes from Misery. We have Kevin, not Kevin Devlin from The Sundog. We have Stanton, not Stanton from The Green Mile.
Okay, Kevin from The Sundog, that wasn't even made into a movie. Kevin's a common name, Arnie. Like, you're going crazy. You are like now in conspiracy land about how this is all connected to the King universe because you're the King guy. These are just common names. I'm sorry, April and Annie. Emery, I'll give you. Emery is not a name that's common, but the rest of these people are just recycled common names. You are correct in saying they're not like these other characters in Misery and what have you, because they're not really acting like those characters. These are not returns of characters that King has written before, and I don't think that it's that interesting or important that you know that.
A lot of people believe that Nick the Psychic, played by Julian Sands in this movie, is the same Nick who was the mysterious British secret agent in The Langoliers.
You may be right. that may be really important, but the Langoliers was shit, and I don't want to think about that. And so I'm trying to just pay attention to this movie. Again, would it make it better to know that he did go on and fight Pac-Man at the airport?
What makes it worse is that Stephen King is just ripping himself off. This is not common names because it can be. I mean, this is called Rose Red. Stephen King had a book in the 90s called Rose Matter. I don't think these are coincidences. I think this is King on opioids doing things to call back. You don't put Carrie in a damn movie with the Rain of Rocks and not want your audience to go, yay, I remember this from other Stephen King. Now it's King on the page, not King on the screen. King has never liked King on the screen. King likes King on the page. So he's going to reference his stuff, not the adaptations of his stuff. He's going to reference The Sundog even if it wasn't a movie. So this is King intentionally referencing. He was really big into The Dark Tower at this point, where he put connections between all of his characters and all of his stories and brought characters back from Salem's Lot and put himself in the story as a character. He is doing all of this intentionally at the expense of the story being told.
By you. I don't notice any of these connections, and I doubt that 80% of the people watching this would either. Only devotees that actually like that connective tissue, that actually did read The Dark Tower and want all of this to tie together, would see that.
Well, I see it, but I don't like it.
Yes, I'm hearing very much complaint, ripping off instead of, again, when you're building a world, some people would say that's great that everything is connected.
Some people like Easter eggs like that because they know them and pick them up. I didn't pick up any of that. But if you're finding this kind of Easter egg dropping to be negative, so be it. I just don't see it's necessary for the plot.
A name? Kevin? You hear Kevin and you're like, God damn it, it's the Sundogs. Come on now. Carrie was intentional.
But we have a story that's ripping off The Shining with a character ripped out of Carrie.
It's not ripping off The Shining. It is not.
It is The Shining retold. And then we have a character from Carrie, and we have a character from the Dead Zone who touches things and gets psychic flashes just like Johnny.
No, that was in Hill House. All of this stuff is archetypes from that Shirley Jackson novel. And if King ripped anything off, it was Shirley Jackson, and he's done it throughout his career. Now, part of the problem here is King is what? 25 years?
27
years into his career. You try making art for 27 years and see if you still have anything original to say by year 27. Yeah, these are copies of copies of copies of things he's already done before. But you listen to your favorite band's later albums, you read books by your favorite authors late in life. This is what it is. I don't come to Stephen King at this point thinking he's going to blow me away with something I've never thought of before. How is he going to look back at the haunted house story that he's told before and offer insight or something new? Again, Shirley Jackson, great novel. What has he got to say about it? What didn't Steven Spielberg want to film that he says is important is the way that I want to experience this. If you want to see this as a series of, God damn you, you're making me watch something that I've seen before, I think we should stop the Stephen King retrospective right now.
But yet, two of my favorite movies this year are Stephen King films. Two more are coming out, which I think may be some of my favorite movies of the year. There's good stuff to be had here based on stories old and new. And this, however, feels so derivative and lazy and Stephen King cashing a paycheck from ABC.
I do not see that. I see him very intentionally taking the structure of a well-known haunted house story and saying, this is my version on it. Just as The Legend of Hell House did that in the 1970s, and I'm here for it. Again, I hear all this negativity. I just want everyone to understand, night one, I'm more or less on board with this slow, dawdling, not particularly scary, but captivating enough Hill House retread.
Stuart, I agree with you. This first 90 minutes, I was absolutely on board. I introduced these characters, maybe not crazy about performances.
You liked Emery.
Well, I liked Emery's performance, but there's enough here to intrigue me on where is this going. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. And of course, how the episode ends is enough to give you okay, I'm coming back for night 2. So this first 90 minutes works.
Okay, and let me get back to Emery, since you mentioned Emery. This guy, again, I mentioned Matt Ross. I liked him in Big Love. He is the absolute worst thing in this movie. He is got this facial expression of, I smelled something bad. Somebody put rotten fish on my upper lip. The whole damn movie. He looks like Bill Gates. He acts so petulant. I felt bad for his character initially. We're introduced to him looking at his mother's credit card bills and having to pay them. And his mother comes in, and another King trope, the overbearing mother and the put upon man-child, who usually ends up killing his mother in Stephen King stories. And so I feel bad for him initially, but by night 2, when this guy doesn't change his facial expression ever, I'm waiting for the ghost to kill him. That the ghosts don't kill him is the biggest mistake of this movie.
And I'll just say this about Emery. To me, he feels closest in spirit to Shirley Jackson. This was the story. She lived at home, oppressed by her mother, and was looking for a way out. And I think we're supposed to hate him from the jump, but I understand why he'd ask for more money. He's drowning in debt. And I actually do have I also live with my mother, so maybe I have some inherited empathy here. But I feel like this series is telling me, hate him, hate him, hate him, and I really never do. I feel like what you're talking about with the performance is true of everyone, Nancy Travis as well. As the series goes on, everyone gets bigger and bigger and overacts more and more because the evil is supposedly getting to them.
So why I like what he's doing, everything you're saying about his facial expressions, he's the only one who's making any sort of acting choice. And he is the only one that when he does go over the top and wants to kill the girl later on, you understand how he got from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. No one else in this cast, no one else in these performances has anything going on him regarding choices, regarding motivations, regarding his mouth agape wide open. He's a mouth breather. That's an obvious, specific choice. And so the way he walks, his way he moves around, the way he talks to people, and the way he interprets his line readings, he is the only one who is making choices, and that's why he seems so out of place. He is performing here a character where everyone else is saying lines. And so when they actually have to go bonkers like Nancy Travis later on, it makes no sense.
Yeah, can I draw a point to what you're saying? Because I totally agree. By contrast, we have these characters, Vic and Pam, and like by the time they're dying, I realize, oh, the old man was supposed to have a crush on her? But like that was not set up at all.
Everybody has a crush on Pam. Every single person there, the old man, the young man, everybody is just enchanted with Emily Deschanel. Now, this is an actress. Ironically, I don't know her very well. I tried to watch Bones because it had David Boreanaz in it, and I was coming off of Angel, and so I gave it a try. I didn't get into Bones, and yet, I hadn't even seen Rose Red, but she was at a con recently. I took Rose Red and had her autograph it, and she looked at me for a moment, and looked at Rose Red, and looked at me, and said, I think this is only the second one I've signed.
Yeah, I imagine she doesn't get that too often. So congrats for that.
I love it. That's great.
It's like when you had Lance Hendrickson sign Mangler 2.
Yes. And he signed it. This is the worst piece of shit I've ever been in. I love that.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad I had her sign it, though, because she's the only actress I actually like the performance of in this movie. I think her young character with the psychic powers and who is so excited to go on this journey is an enchanting character. I could see why the other characters would be smitten with her, and I am so disappointed when she's taken out so early.
Yeah, does she do anything, though? Do you even need them? This is one of my aggravations about needing all of these talents of all these people to feel things. She feels a door knocker, right? That's it? Mm-hmm. So the only thing she's ever does in the whole house?
That's it.
Yeah, she's here for body count.
Yeah, but the problem is I'm not getting enchanted off of her at all. I'm getting she's beautiful. I'm getting the old man likes her. And you'll notice when she is the ghost lady, her hair is down. And when she's actually Pam, her hair is back. That is how they determine it, because she's hard to recognize with her hair down at first. And so it's the touching thing is also being done on Star Wars, you know, like they get the Force feelings and they get the past. I really was confused whether or not she actually dies, because she's such a non-character. She's beautiful, but I don't understand why she's here. I had the same issue with Judith Ivey, who we all know from a lot of things. This woman has been working since she's forever. I can't tell you anything she's been in, but I know her. She's dependable, and I had no idea what the hell she was doing here until night 3, and even then, it was weak.
No, she is unnecessary. Stephen King is a putter-inner, not a taker-outer. If he was a taker-outer, he would have taken out this character. I only know this actress because of another cartoon. She was John Lovett's mom in The Critic. That is the only thing I could tell you about her, but I have seen her in stuff. She does fine in this show. I don't dislike her, but man, is she extraneous.
Again, my theme is not that these are bad actors or that we should throw lots of heap of disdain on them. It's that who in this cast do you like? Who do you want to follow for 3 nights? I don't want to follow her. I don't want to follow Emily Deschanel. She doesn't do anything but feel a doorknob. Nobody here seems to really matter except Annie and Joyce, and I don't like them.
The one who I waited to do something, the one who's given a lot of dialogue and a lot of exposition. I know you made fun of him for being the warlock. Julian Sands as Nick. I like this character. Julian Sands, I do know him. If I ever see him, the first thing I'm going to think of is the warlock, but he was good in Arachnophobia when we reviewed him.
He started in English costume dramas, just to be clear. Best Picture nominee, Room with a View and Maurice, and he had a credible career as an actor. And then Schlock found him, and I think it was Warlock that did that to him.
Yeah, I think it is, but he still had good stuff in him. Boxing Helena was a movie that I really enjoyed back in the 90s. I haven't revisited it, but...
You're making that up. Yeah, you remembered incorrectly. That is a completely terrible film.
I think his character is the one I like the most as well, besides Emery, because his line readings also are intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
I did not get his powers very much at this first episode. Later on, when he comes into play, I enjoyed him much more. But at the beginning, he just seems superfluous as well. Like Michael Crichton has, put this band together, one of these. But since they didn't take the time to explain what Kevin Tighe's character really does, you don't really understand why he's here, except for a horror movie trope of a bunch of people go into a house and only 3 walk out.
Yeah. To look at Shirley Jackson, it was a smaller cast, and not everyone was psychic. Here, they're trying to differentiate their psychic powers, and I can't follow it. One can only see the past, one can only see the future, and one sees visions or something. Again, It's bad. It's not well defined. Julian Sands is pretty good in this, but he's mean. I will say he's not particularly likable. He bullies Emery for much of it for being fat. He gets judgy in ways that I think are unwarranted, but as far as the cast goes, he's probably, dramatically speaking, one of the better ones, but has nothing to do until night 3.
No, he doesn't. I get that he's mean to Emery, and I'm okay with that because Emery seems to be mean himself. And I don't know if this is Nick because he's psychic, just knowing Emery has a black soul, or if he's just a mean person who likes to pick on people. But Emery also distances himself from this group. He thinks he's better than this group. He won't go out when the rest of them go to get beers. Emery doesn't go with this group.
I have a different read on that. His mom wanted him home. Again, he is forced to do her will. I don't see it that he thought he was better. I don't see that.
I think his mother actually knows that he has this sort of gift, and therefore she wants to exploit that for money.
Yeah.
What we were talking about earlier about Annie and her father, this mother is doing that. And I did not get any of that. I didn't even notice he wasn't at the drinking night, to be honest with you. I didn't even occur to me hey, why isn't Emery there? And it doesn't matter.
He's home having visions, right? We know that he keeps seeing things from the house, and he kind of has an interesting attitude about that. He's like, you know what? You're not going to scare me. Like most people, if they see a skeleton in their kitchen, would get a little freaked out. Blood on the fridge. I would not go into the house, right? But he's kind of okay with it.
He's still a little shocked by it, but he's like, oh, this is happening again? Okay.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing, I guess, right? And so that was kind of a good take on the, I see dead people kind of thing, right? It's kind of a nice take. He's getting visions, he's getting precognitions, and he knows exactly why, and he's having none of it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was a good idea, and I just really liked the choices the guy was making to convey all this, because here's the thing. Of all of these characters in the first episode, including Joyce Reardon, you understand exactly why Emery is going to do what he's going to do. No one else is clear at all. Even David Dukes, who's playing the guy who wants to revoke Joyce's tenure, you still don't know.
Yeah.
Even though he's given so much information, you still don't know why he's doing what he's doing. Only Emery. And that is because the actor, all the choices that he made with the stuff he was given to make sure you get it.
He was also given more. We don't see any of these other people with family, with friends. Emery, because he has a mother who's overbearing, we see his home life. All these other people, we're introduced to Emery and we're introduced to Annie as Joyce is calling them and negotiating with them. Everybody else just shows up for a seminar, and they're all introduced as a group. They have no backstory. They have very little character. I like what Kevin Teague does as Vic the psychic, the old man. I thought his performance was rather endearing. Kevin Teague, I learned something while researching this. I know this actor. He's been in just a ton of stuff all around. I just know the face.
He's a working, well-liked, and good enough actor. He is clearly not given enough to do here because I have no idea why he keeps taking pills. And I thought in this episode when they're in the bar and he has to take his pill, I thought he was just a drug addict. I had no clue why he's taking this stuff, and it's not well explained until later in episodes.
Till he has a heart attack.
Right, he has a heart attack.
It isn't, but yet when I saw him taking pills, I'm immediately, maybe it's the shape of the pills, maybe it's that I've seen this cliche so often in TV and film, but I'm like, well, that's nitroglycerin. He has a bad heart. That'll come up later.
I didn't realize that was like something that size pill is about that. I didn't know that. Okay.
We keep talking about these actors and what they've done in other things. I think it's really interesting that we're not talking about what their characters are doing in this movie. And that's because they're not doing anything in this movie. It's because, well, first night we get to know them and I'm more or less cool with it. But the second night, there's only one star, and it's the house. It is, let's walk room by room and show you this fantastic house we built. It is the only thing to be Emmy nominated from this production is the art direction. And I guess it looks pretty good for a TV budget. I don't think it looks as good as Yonda Bond's house in that haunting.
I'm impressed with the house. A lot of this is practical, a real castle around Seattle. This story was not written to be in Seattle. This story was probably written to be in Maine, but they found this castle near Seattle. King rewrote the entire story to take place in Seattle. The front of Rose Red is this Thornwood castle in the Seattle suburbs, and some of the rooms in this house are actual rooms they've restored to the original condition. Apparently, again, much like this story, whoever owned Thornwood Castle went broke and divided the main floor into like apartments and things so that they could rent it cheap. And this production restored it back to how it used to be. And so a lot of this stuff is pre-existing. I found a video on YouTube of a guy who rented it like an Airbnb for a night and gave a tour of this mansion as it stands today versus how it was used in Rose Red. But then a lot of this is also on a huge Seattle area airplane hangar where they built a lot of the sets, like the upside down room and the hallway with the mysterious passages.
And we spend an inordinate amount of time, almost all of night 2, just looking at all of these places that they will not use. Can I just say the frustration is you set up all these characters, you set up all of these rooms, and then, I don't know, it's all about a bitch in a tower. It does not matter what happened.
When I started this miniseries, I was excited. I'd heard some good things about it in the Stephen King Reddit. I was a little skeptical because it's an ABC TV project from Stephen King, but I came in with an open mind. By the end of night 1, I'm like, this is dull, but it ended with a death. It ended with Bollinger getting sucked into the ceiling of the solarium, and I'm like, okay, it's too long, as every Stephen King thing is. This whole first night could have been cut down to a half hour, but we're in the house now. Let's get to night 2. It's night 2 where I've decided this is a scarlet red arrow, not even rose red. It's deeper than that because, yes, we're going to spend so long going through this house. I might as well have taken the Winchester house tour because, yeah, we have Joyce going room to room. The one thing I like is Emery makes fun of her for being a tour guide because that's all she is they go room to room and give you flashbacks to what happened in Rose Red in its old time, but this is all backstory. Nothing happens.
I'm not against that. As someone that likes a slow build and a location as character, you're going to take one night to tell us the people, one night to tell the house. Okay, you've got a cool house. So when I see this mirror library, I don't see no books in it, but I'm like, that's cool. The ghost comes out of the floor and it's got a mirror. So much is made of this dollhouse on a shelf. I'm like, oh, these are all tropes. You know, they do everything but the oil painting with the eyes that follow you. But I'm like, I like being in a spooky house. You've gotten a good spooky house. You know, late in that night too, it's night. And I'm like, oh, they're finally going to get it on. And it just don't utilize any of these locations.
Not well, anyway. Like the upside down room comes up once. The ongoing hallway comes back and the mirror floor thing. I liked the rooms as well, but about halfway through episode 2, when it did become nighttime, maybe it was a little earlier than that, I realized not enough people are dying to fill in another episode here. Like, it doesn't feel like they've spaced this out well enough. It kind of feels like they're wasting time in episode 2. That's when that's kind of dawning on me that we're really running in place here. When are we going to get to it?
And I pity you, Brock, because you haven't been with us on this journey of stretching Stephen King night after night and having these commercial breaks and all that. But it is par for the course. When you're making ABC television, you have to keep repeating things because people came in and they didn't see the last half hour or they didn't see the first night. So there is a lot of monotony and repetition that maybe I'm just being gracious and being like, I'm going to give it a pass. I'm just going to be okay with it.
You are being far too nice about it. And I think maybe... You know, Stuart, you once mentioned the analogy of the frog boiled in water. I feel like you've been in the hot water too long if you're giving this a pass.
Well, you can tell it's television, too. Obviously, we don't have commercial breaks. We're watching it on Hulu. But at the end of a segment, they have a ghost come to the screen or pop out of something just to keep, oh, okay, after the break, they're going to have the ghost come.
But it won't.
But it won't. And after like the third time, I'm like, not gonna fool me again.
And it even cut to black. I also watched this on Hulu. I couldn't find where I'd put my signed disc, so I just watched it on Hulu. And it was like just so obvious every time a commercial break would happen. I did find a copy on YouTube of somebody who VHS'd it and left the commercials in. I truthfully believe that would be the best way to watch this, is with breaks instead of like a movie, because there is so much repetition and so many weird cliffhangers that would maybe keep you interested if you had to wait 5 minutes for different ads, but are totally hysterically bad when watching it edited without commercials.
Yeah, it has to ramp up each time after a commercial, right? Because it comes to a dead stop, then you have to continue on. So yes, that does make sense, and why the pacing is a little bit off is because of the format.
And rather than ramping up and building on a story where we're learning more and more about the characters, it's more like an anthology. It was like, oh, well, now we're learning about in the 40s, some actress disappeared in the billiard room. And it's not particularly bloody or effectively shot. It's not really scary. It just becomes about moments. And while I can appreciate the house, I want something to happen to these people, not have these people keep reminiscing about something that happened 40 years ago.
Truthfully, I can't think of a better way to do it. You want to have the backstory of this house. You want to say why this house is evil and set up lore for this house and why the matriarch of this house is going to appear as our big bad ghost at the end. And so we need this stuff to be here, but yet it's also not very interesting as told and as narrated poorly by Nancy Travis. Maybe it would work better if this were, instead of just brief flashbacks to the past where Nancy Travis is voiceovering everything, if we had Nancy Travis start to tell the story and then we transitioned and told basically what we're probably going to be watching next week in the past, and instead of just being said, oh, this person disappeared during a tour, if we had moments of suspense and that was being shown to us and not told to us, and we could live the horror instead of Nancy Travis giving one of her college professor lectures on the horror, that might work better. But the way it's told here it's a 90-minute info dump.
Yeah, but there are a couple of scenes like that, which also puts it in mind. The scene when Steven's younger and he sees the ghost in the house. That's in episode 2, I believe, right? When the mom leaves him alone in a giant spooky house.
They tease it actually every night. At the very end of the first night, he looks at the house and has a brief flash of being a child lost in it as well. But, again, they try to tell you a little bit more. He saw a woman in white, but who is that? The next night, then he mentions more about that and the hammer.
Right. So they do a little bit of that there. They do a little bit of the flashbacks here and there. I do think the way to tell this story would be start each night with an extended scene of what happened in the house and then cut off at the last bit. So like that we learn that the husband was not suicide but murder, but you tease it with suicide up until that point, and then you go to modern day, so when you see it again. There are ways to do this that they didn't do here that would have really given it much more clarity. And that's a big problem with the show also is they have this amazing house. They show us all these different rooms. You have all these characters we don't really know very well or care about because the way it's structured really needed a rewrite of how are we going to unfold this story? And the way to do it is in pieces of like a chunk of 10 minutes of the flashback, and tease would be someone saying something in the house and then you start up with the house again. There's a way to structure this that for some reason these people who are paid to write television could not crack.
You mean Stephen King?
I hear that the problem for you guys is structure, but mine is more basic. What's so interesting in the end? Why does this house want them? What is the mystery? What is the big reveal? There's no there. I mean, what becomes clearly apparent, but not really until night 3 for me, is that this is not a really well retelling of The Haunting of Hill House. Because again, The Haunting of Hill House, you can watch that Robert Wise movie and say there's no ghost in here at all. It's the projections of a spinster who has never been outside her house or her life and is projecting all of her feelings about men and her over-controlling mother onto the walls. And I don't know what this story is. You tell me, what is Joyce experiencing? I see her dancing around with portable equipment, photographing something. But what is happening to her? What is the seduction? Is she Dr. Frankenstein for wanting to know the paranormal? Because I want to know the paranormal. I don't think she's evil. I'm with her. You tell me why it's a tragedy that she ends up being this crazy woman that wants to trap them there.
I don't know. I mean, we get during the end of the second night is when things start to fall into place. But it's so censored for television that I had to rewind a couple of times to realize Pam was being lured to her death. I did not realize initially that that was Pam's demise and that when we'd see her later every time, she was a ghost in Rose Red. And I think it's because Rose Red, as we're told by Joyce, women disappear, men get killed. And so since Pam is a woman, we don't get to see her drown. We're going to see a drowned body later, but she just disappears.
No, she's dead. They don't even follow their own rules. If women just disappear, then you don't have her drowned in the fountain. Then you don't do that.
Right, because when the old man found her in the pond after the ghost lures him there, all it's there is her nightgown. So you see her body, but it's not really her body.
No, you see her body, yeah.
Because I thought it disappeared when he went down and touched it.
It did, but yeah, all of this is like, again, and boy, this irritate me, but yes, what are we watching and we can't be sure of anything that we see? Well, at a certain point, I need to know what's happening. What are you telling me? Is she dead or is she not dead? You told me we saw her go to the kitchen and the school photographer jumping out and say cheese, and the next thing I know, she's wandering outside towards the fountain. I have to take it to mean that the house made her get into that shallow water and drowned. She is dead. She is not eaten in the way that the house preserves other women. The house kills men and takes away women, but in this case, she's dead.
It's so confusing.
Bad writing.
And then the fact that, yes, Vic is being seduced by Ghost Pam and gets taken outside, and the statue slowly removes its face. What am I supposed to be scared of under a statue? It's not, again, like Poltergeist, where the guy rips his flesh off and you get musculature and viscera and all of that. Here, this statue removes its face, and that scares Vic so much, he has a heart attack. I recently watched The Naked Gun, and there's a scene in the new Naked Gun where somebody tries to kill Frank Drebin by pumping out his asthma inhaler. And so when Frank needs his asthma inhaler, it's empty. And that was funny to me. It's funny here that he dies because Emery won't try to give him his medicine because Emery thinks he's a ghost.
Here's the problem I'm having. You see a scene like this and you believe that this house is possessed by the evil spirit of the daughter or Ellen. Right? We've learned that Ellen had 2 children. The boy didn't even matter. He was sent off to boarding school, and the girl was in the kitchen, and the maid was supposed to be watching her. And then lo and behold, she was just gone having a doll tea party. And now there's a dead body in the fountain memorializing that girl. Did she do that? Is this the work of April Rimbaud? No, because sometimes this movie is telling us the house is behind it all. And sometimes this movie is acting like Ellen is doing all of this. And I don't think that the writer has a clear idea about what is so evil about this place.
Yeah, it's really undefined. You know, is it the Indian burial ground? Is it the woman who lived there?
Right.
One line that Joyce is going to say, I think this is at the beginning of 3, is that houses are alive. A good house cradles and comforts. A bad one fills us with instinctive unease. You know, some houses are born bad.
Which is, again, just total graft from Shirley Jackson. Like, I mean, just, like, it might be a Xerox of it. This is the prose of that novel.
So I read the book many, many years ago, and I know it's a classic book. You seem to know the book very, very well. How many people you think watching this, especially in 2003, know the book as well, right? So it might just be something that we notice or we've seen versions of the story before, so we know it. However, they are clearly shooting for an audience that this stuff is new to them. Or if at the least bit, trying to intrigue people with BS tropes. Because honestly, it's so confusing why things are happening when they're happening, to whom they're happening, that it's very challenging to, at this point, in the middle of episode 2, when people do start to die, it's so confusing on what's a ghost and what's not a ghost. Unless it's a puppet. Unless it's one of those puppet zombies, then you know that's a ghost. But this whole thing with Pam, with the old man, and then how Emery does not know that Vic is a real person, not a ghost, is unclear, because he should seem to know the difference. In previous scenes, when Emery sees a ghost, they look like ghosts or zombies. They don't look like a human being outside of a window.
Not only that, but again, this is where I hate Julian Sands' Nick, because Nick is going to be all pompous about, like, why wouldn't you let him in? Why did you leave this person outside to have a heart attack? Well, 1, the guy doesn't know CPR. He wouldn't be able to save this man's life. He was minutes from dying anyway. 2, the house made very clear it wasn't going to open the door. And 3, can you really blame anyone in this house for not being able to tell reality from the delusions that the house is purporting? I don't hate Emery because he didn't open the door, but Nick is trying to signal to us that we should have moral superiority and that we should just hate Emery from this point forward because he was so weak.
And we're supposed to hate Joyce during this scene because she, while all of this is going on with Vic and with Pam, she's looking at her, I don't know, PK meter from Ghostbusters and laughing like a loon. I mean, I'll give you this. Maybe Emery isn't the worst. Maybe Emery is the second worst, and Nancy Travis, the more she goes insane, is the worst, because this and the whole next night, Nancy Travis is just unspeakably bad. She just cannot get her character.
I'm not here to knock on these actors. They're given very bad material that it's just not there on the page. You would think that there are 30 pages missing when you flip the page from her, like, being sensitive and caring to her, like, no one's leaving and I don't believe that the house is killing people. You don't believe this house is paranormal? Isn't that why we're here? What do you mean you don't believe this? That's ridiculous. It makes no sense. But I want to underline something that's really crucial. We were told the key to everything is Annie. And that's the one person we're not talking about in all of these things. Because she's just, what, sleeping? What's happening? She has like a moment where like she sees a boogie lady in the closet or something. She winds up the Victrola after Stephen King delivers some pizzas and they all do a sock hop. If you're telling me Annie's important, Annie's Carrie, Annie has the potential to unlock this house and become evil, that's the only thing we should be talking about.
I want to credit Nancy Travis and Matt Ross because usually the Stephen King cameos are the worst acted thing in a Stephen King movie. And here, he's par. He gave it a base hit, you know?
Yeah. I believed he was a pizza man. Sure.
Well, wait a second. I believed he was a pizza man at the first sentence. Why he hung around for a conversation, I had no idea.
Yeah, he wanted to join in the dance. I thought that was...
What the hell was that? Like, just, okay, it's a really prolonged cameo here. It was funny and cute at the first, and then, wait, he's still there?
Yeah.
Is he waiting for a tip? Does someone tip him or something? Get him out of here.
I knew he was coming. I read that he was a pizza man in this. And then Emery is complaining that the food has too much mayonnaise. You know, he gives the fat guy the lines to complain about the food. And Nancy Travis said, well, I might have something better for you later. I'm like, she means pizza.
Anyway, back to Annie. To my point. So she starts dancing with Steve, who we will find out is also a key to this house. But you tell me why. What is happening here? I don't know. Is Ellen trying to... I've seen this girl, like, hold on to this Raggedy Ann doll. And then she finds another one. She calls it her babies and gives it the names of Ellen's 2 children, one of which went missing and one of which just dropped out of the story. Wasn't even killed. Just, we don't know.
No, he had a son and then died of natural causes, I think.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. But is this Ellen trying to be reborn in Annie? Is she trying to recreate through the descendant? Is she seducing Steve? I just wish the movie could try. You know, like, I get that we don't want everything tied up in a bow, but not tripping over the yarn as we try to get to a plot point would be nice.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that sense because Annie is here and isn't non-factors so much. She gives googly eyes at Steve, but then she plays with a doll. Again, I was really confused with how old she is and what's going on, and that isn't helping anything at all. I kind of liked that they had the parallels with the dolls, Raggedy Ann and Andy, right? That's what it goes with. So she found an Andy or a Raggedy Ann, depending which one she already had, with the old dead daughter's doll. When the baby carriage all of a sudden appears and it wasn't just a ghostly object, it was actually there, which was really weird too. So yes, again, in this middle of the second at night, I started realizing that they do not have enough time to pay off anything they've set up, and then they have not set up these characters well enough for me to care really what happens with them.
Agreed.
And I want to underline, Annie has been told, come home. We had night 1, all these scenes of her wind chimes with a face in it telling her that Rose Red was where she was from. So I'm waiting for that tie of finding out that she's really, you know, Steve's long lost niece, or I don't know what. I can't write this thing, but I hear what they're trying to get me to think, and then that they don't even follow through on that leads me to believe that Stephen King, as you say, Arnie, was incapacitated, was not able to conceive of an original story, but was grabbing at threads.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how little Annie matters, especially on night 2, where it's such a dialogue dump, and you've created a character who doesn't speak, so can't even react to the dialogue and can't interact with the dialogue. I forgot about her on night 2. I really did. I'm focused on all these other characters. Nick and Emery are stealing the spotlight with Joyce. And Steve is still there, and I'm like, why is Steve here? It's not until the 3rd night we're going to find out that Nick is going to call him a psychic projector, and this house is powering his psychic ability the way the other psychics are powering the house.
Yeah, well, he makes the most sense because he's blood, right? Ellen is related to him, and he had this moment that we finally see the full play out in night 3, that the woman in white that we saw standing at the top of the stairs in night 1, and who scared him into running back to his drunk mother, looting the place in night 2, held up a hammer and says, I want you to build. And so it's his destiny to not sell this house, but to keep expanding it. Or that selling it to the condominiums is doing her will. Again, it seems like the twist is Annie is a red herring and he is the only thing that's important, right?
I do think he needed to bleed at some point, and we should have seen his hand or whatever touch the house with the blood. So therefore that turned on. Because I got the same thing you did, and apparently that Julian Sands got, but Julian Sands seemed to get it out of nowhere. He all of a sudden got telepathy. Out of the blue, got telepathy. So that is how we know that the house is now channeling through him. But again, that's me helping the show.
Oh, it is so much, because when he got telepathy, I literally got confused and started to confuse Steve and Nick. And then I'm like, wait, that's not Julian Sands. But I thought it was at first when he's talking psychically with Annie, and Annie is becoming obsessed with this dollhouse that is a replica of Rose Red, but it's never paid off. Like, I'm not even sure if these psychics did power up the house,
right,
or not, because Bollinger got to the house before the psychics, and there was a ghost opening the door for him and sucking him into the solarium instantly. So was Joyce bringing them here as human sacrifices? I don't even know her motivation. I don't know why they are there. Most of them don't even use their damn psychic powers.
Right. I want to underline what you just said of the house was doing bad things long before Annie showed up there. So it does not make any sense that she had any real impact on it. And now that we're finding out that Steve could build onto the house and continue his great-great-grandmother's work, then why are we paying any attention to this autistic kid who has not been interesting at all? We're told that she is, because she has her telekinetic powers, her psychokinesis, she's the one holding the doors closed. And it all becomes about, how do we get the doors open? Emery, I think, yes, he's crazy, but he also had his fingers chopped off by a door. He has the idea that we could knock her out, or maybe worse, and get out of here.
And truthfully, if you just talk about knocking her out, I mean, it's mean, but it kind of makes sense. Now, killing her, when he talks about killing her, that's just not going to get anyone on his side. That's perhaps not the best tack to take.
Or holding onto a fireplace poker while he approaches her slowly. However, knocking her out with some sort of, I'm not sure chloroform would be here. Something like that.
She fell off a chair and was out. I mean, put her on another chair, right?
But that's how Emery figured out that she was literally the key to the door, right? So if you understand where he's coming from, but you have to figure out a better way to do it. Killing a little girl is not the way to do it and makes you really turn on the character. However, again, I'm going to die on this sword. Because of what he was doing before throughout this entire show, him wanting to kill Annie, I feel is within his character. So it makes sense.
Yeah. He makes the most sense of what all these people are doing. Again, I feel like Steve and not Joyce is the one that should be going crazy. Now that he realizes that this was his destiny to come home and rebuild, he's the one that should be seduced by the house. He's the one that should be saying, we're not going to leave. And maybe his lover is the one you know what? I don't need to do this experiment today. Maybe we'll come back. I think Nancy Travis should be the nice character trying to get out, and he should be the evil one.
Yeah, he should have turned on everybody because the house went through him because he's blood. They missed that opportunity.
Yeah, he's the thing that matters. He can actually build on this. He owns this house, and he has the power to bring in construction workers and what have you, and there's a magical hammer that's going to be handed to him. What's weird is that all of a sudden on night 3, they just decide, we haven't given Nick and Kathy enough to do. Let's forget everybody else and just have them wander around for about half an hour. She goes to the kitchen to get tea or something.
By herself.
Yes.
By herself. Yeah, in a haunted house.
Yeah. No, God is with her. She's religious. So God is with her. She didn't go by herself.
And surprisingly, King doesn't kill her or make her evil. I usually expect that when there's a religious character.
Yeah. Well, she's not maniacal, right? She's not beating people with the Bible. She's just, that's her faith. I don't really know. There's just one scene of her and Vic reading Revelations. So I didn't really even realize she was Christian until this moment. But she's in the kitchen drinking tea, looking in the solarium and saying, boy, the flowers are growing nicely, which means what? I don't know, but I guess it's the closest thing we have to explaining the title, Rose Red.
No, I think it's because everything was dead and now everything is growing. So that's what she's pointing out. That the house is coming much more alive, that flowers are growing nicely. I took that to mean the house is now at its full power.
But my point is, we haven't ever been told why this house was called Rose Red, and now we see that it's directly connected to the garden. It's the solarium itself that seems to be where the most life, the heart of the house, if we can say that, is here in that health room. And then, let's not forget, Embry's mom came, had a fender bender with the college professor outside, and they were wandering around. Turns out that she's in the wine cellar, ready to jump out and choke Kathy.
This is kind of a sad thing. During the filming of this, David Dukes died. He was playing tennis and fell dead on the tennis court the night before they were to film his death scene for Rose Red.
Oh.
And so, apparently, they had more of him in night 3 that his spirit was going to be doing something, which makes no sense because it's always the women's spirit who do things. I don't know why the spirit of Dr. Miller would do anything.
Well, Kevin's here.
Yeah, that's true. He is. But I guess Stephen King had to go and rewrite Night 3. And it's weird that they were filming in order. But Emery's mom got a beefed up part because Dr. Miller wasn't there. And they had to get a lookalike and do some like far shots. And when he's being chased through the woods there, you know, because right in the middle of Seattle is a forest. When he's being chased through those woods, it wasn't him, and that's why there's branches obscuring his face and things.
Look, I will say this. It is very sad that this actor died. It's always sad when actors die, period. Anyone dies. But I didn't need more of this character in this. I didn't need this whole subplot of, I want to stop this investigation. I didn't think it was very successful.
And I'm sad he died because he's a human being. But he's bad in this too.
I call this Stephen King acting. I mean, it's like what the people in Maximum Overdrive were doing. It's what, whenever people are encouraged to just be gregarious and play to the peanut gallery, you know, it's overacting. That's what Stephen King writes to. And unfortunately, that's what most of these actors have been. You know, I will say Kathy and Julian Sands are not doing that. And maybe that's why it's kind of nice that they have this moment in the middle of Night 3 where they're wandering around. They had that cool moment where you realize you had to tie ropes to banisters and stuff because the house switches up on you. You turn back and the hallway you thought was there is now a wall and the rope is just going into it. Do more of that, please. Like, I think that would have been a nifty thing to do, but it's all over very fast. I don't know what kills Julian Sands.
I had to rewind also. He pushes her into a room because they're being chased by a zombie or something, and then he's just dead.
Something under the rug.
Yeah.
There's something, I mean, it's kind of a fun effect of watching. Happened too in the second night, something was coming up her bed sheets. But what that was and why.
I loved it.
Does the house need people there to turn them into zombies to kill other people? Is that Kevin, the school photographer, killing Nick?
I liked the effect of the thing underneath. I called it a serpent. I had no idea why. I just loved the effect.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Nick would sacrifice his life for a woman he just met who has no impact, to have no relationship besides wandering the house then that day. And that also seemed to me weird. I'm not saying he should have pushed her out of the way to save himself, but how about he goes first, opens the door, and pulls her through? So it doesn't make any sense.
The only thing I could think of is Nick Andros in The Stand sacrificed himself to save the rest of the townspeople when Harold Lauder put that bomb in there. And so this Nick must also sacrifice himself to save somebody. But it makes no sense in the context of this story. It's just King being like, well, this is a character callback, so I'm going to give him a death callback.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about The Stand or any other Stephen King work while I'm watching this. I'm just trying to understand what they're telling me about this house and how it's working. We know that Kevin hung himself in the Mirror Library. Did he get out of the noose and is now doing the bidding? I know Pam, she seems to be the one, she's trying to seduce Emery and all that. Are they actually the hands to do the murdering for the house? Or does the house really need humans to do that? Again, I'll never get answers to this, so I guess I'll stop asking the questions. But these are the things that you do ask when you're writing. And I just don't see that King spent enough time on this project, even though it was developed over a matter of, 6 years?
No, and how much he rewrote at the end and expanded his putter inner instincts clashed with ABC standards and practices and what you could actually put on television.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, then at least put an uncut version on DVD. They had every plan to put this on DVD. There was a 4.5-hour director's commentary. There were bonus features made. I watched all that stuff. If you give us some stuff that you can't put on television on that DVD version. But no, it is just not there. So characters drop out of this. And I'm like, did I miss a death? Did I miss something? It's just, I guess because the house makes people disappear, we never get to see it.
You know, I also just want to say this is the year 2002. I get that in 1990, when Tim Curry is trying to be a killer clown from outer space, maybe you can't show stuff. But there was more gore in it, than there is in this. It seems to be a choice. And again, I will direct you to the complaint that Spielberg had. King, you're writing, it's quote unquote more horror, which I take to mean more subtle. You're not doing big action, splashy things with the rooms you built, with the characters you have. We need something more visual. And I think Spielberg's complaint is bearing fruit here.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the movie that Steven Spielberg made out of these conversations. I didn't like Liam Neeson's The Haunting a lot, but I can't say King is proving himself any better.
Yeah, let's get to the end because I think we're there. So Kathy, the automatic writer, basically finds an old marriage portrait of Ellen and John Rimbauer that's covered in dust, fortunately, so that she can write in the dust, Ellen, Sakina, murder. And that, of course, means that Sakina and Ellen in 1920 whatever tricked the philandering husband to go up to the newly constructed tower and fall out of the stained glass window.
Right. So it looks like they're having an affair, the two of them, but really it's not as clear. And after a minute, Sakina sees Ellen, and then you see it's a ruse, and the two of them have a moment that you see they're probably lovers after they kill this man who everyone looks like suicide to get back at him for everything. And it was a wonderful moment. I really liked it. And in hindsight, I really hope the movie did more to earn that moment, because that really is the kind of thing that brings context to everything else you're watching, except in this thing, which it just seemed like a cool little vignette versus explanation for why things are happening.
Maybe hope for next week, because next week will be entirely the story of Ellen and Sakina and John.
However, that wasn't planned at this time, right? That's tagged on afterwards because this was a rating success.
I wish this miniseries did more to drive home how much of a serial cheater and asshole John Rimbauer was.
Yeah. Some honeys in a Model T is all we see.
Yeah. And the book makes me actually appreciate this murder more. Like, this guy really fucking deserved his death that he's going to get pushed out the window by these two lovers having a lesbian affair back in the 1920s when that was so unacceptable.
And can I just say that he pushed them into that? It was part of his kink to make the maid and his wife do that. So again, it's complicated. You're right. This is something that belongs on Skinamax. And instead we're on ABC TV owned by Disney. And you're just not going to read that in this final version. You can get it in the novel. I'm glad, Brock, that you even saw lesbianism in this, because I think it's so barely there, you could blink and miss it.
I didn't see it in this at all. I didn't see his philandering much in this.
So you guys get the shorthand for heart attack. I get the shorthand for for lesbians. Apparently.
It's all shorthand, and yet this thing has not been short. Ironically, if you wanted to do real shorthand, one night and we're done. But here we are at the end of night 3, and everybody knows that this is why Ellen is to be feared. Are we scared of Ellen or are we scared of the house? It's not really clear to me, but Ellen is coming for them and they're all running for the door.
And Joyce is trying to stop them from going. We have this tug of war because Annie is keeping the house locked because Joyce is telling her to, and Steve is psychically trying to get Annie to open the door. Suddenly Annie matters. I mean, she's been there the whole time, but now everything hinges on Annie and what Annie decides to do.
Yeah, when they say that she's the key to the place, they literally mean she's the door key that can get them out. But that's it. That's the whole point, is that we got to be nice to this little girl so we can get out the front door.
And I guess what really makes it is, yes, Ellen manifests and comes to Steve and is like, it reminded me of the song, If I Had a Hammer, I'd hammer all over the house.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I mean, you can't build a house with one hammer and no nails, but I guess it's just a starter kit. What you can do with ectoplasm, I don't know. But yes, he can continue the family legacy and what she stopped doing in 1950.
And so he smashes the mirror with the hammer instead of building the house, and she turns into a demon of some sort.
There basically is a big ensemble of, like, Emery's mom is now a zombie coming for her son. And again, they didn't develop these characters enough to, like, give everyone a moment, but...
No, they developed Emery with his backstory. I was surprised. Mostly, I expected Emery to die. I kind of thought the telekinetically controlled suit of armor might kill him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was trying to kill Annie with it.
Oh, you knew when they saw that suit of armor, it's going to move, right? It's got an axe.
Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Gotta attack somebody. But it didn't kill him. You're right. It did not kill him.
No, it didn't. It didn't kill him. But, what I liked, I think this is a good place to talk about this. The suit of armor, when it first started to move, looked really cool. And then it looked like a guy in a suit. So, it didn't really have any subtlety. They had a dance party, as we mentioned, the sock hop thing. And at first, you saw them dancing on a pane of glass that's looking upward. I thought it was a really cool shot because they had a whole room. They talked about having, glass on the floor, like a mirror on the floor or whatever. But then they have them floating in air dancing, but they're not floating in air. They're clearly dancing on something because their feet are flat on the ground. So it didn't work. So this moment and that moment, and the puppets, when they go from the back, look really good with the hands. And then they go to the front of the puppet and it looks like the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt. And it takes you completely out of it.
So much Crypt Keeper.
And so they have all these beginnings of amazing effects, and then they maybe just don't use it properly for the next part of that same scene 5 or 6 times throughout this whole thing.
The one I found funniest was April Grimbauer, the daughter, who had they call it a withered arm, and that prosthetic looked like a T-Rex arm. I was laughing every time. I'm like, I shouldn't be laughing at a girl's deformity, but it is so poorly done.
To me, it looked like a chicken wing. Or something like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it just terrible.
At any rate, they all make it out. We lost Vic, we lost Pam, we lost Nick, but everyone else is out.
Joy stays in, and the ghosts all come for her.
Right.
And take her. And I guess this is how all the women disappeared, as the other spirits came. Although, again, we get Bollinger, the student photographer, as one of them.
I got the impression, though, that the women were enticed to join the house. Joyce is being forced to join the house, and I found that different.
But yet, Joyce stayed when everyone could have left. I think she was obsessed with the house. She's our Jack Nicholson. The way he became part of the Overlook, she has become part of the house. Now, when they're actually grabbing you and look like deformed zombies, maybe you regret that decision, but she did make her choice.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not interested in Joyce. She went from being the central character to just being annoying by night 3. And so, yeah, that's fine. Annie, this is the moment. You don't need a wrecking ball, right? She can bring down the rocks to destroy the house. It's weird that she brings down these rocks, but then they have to come back 6 months later and actually have real people demo the place.
I thought it was really weird that the first shot was a really cool shot of the rocks destroying the house, and then it looked like PAs were throwing rocks at a model. Because that model looks so obvious. So again, and it just is amazing to me how all those beautiful, I doubt there were helicopter shots of a matte painting of the house, were so beautiful.
I think that was a model of the house that mimics the house's front, but that real castle doesn't go as deep and have the crazy wings enough.
Yeah.
And when we had those aerial shots, they did an effect that they added digital clouds and made it kind of warp and things so that it hid the modelness of it. But then during the scene with the rocks, they just show how cheap a model it is.
Right, exactly. That's my point. It's they had all these wonderful aspects. Again, they start off really cool with these effects, and then somehow they just forgot that, we have to make it look like an actual house. Now, yes, to be fair, if you watch the original Superman, Richard Donner, enough times, especially almost 50 years later, the dam looks like a model and the city that gets flooded looks like a model. But that's 50 years ago. This is 20 years ago, and they had CGI abilities, and they had model making has come a far way. And frankly, disaster movies, you have a forgiveness. This is something different. You have the ability to mask this model, to mask that suit of armor. I get the puppets. I understand that. I concede that is the constraints. These puppets cost a fortune for television. I get it.
Brock?
Yes.
You weren't on Shining. I wish you could see the hedge monster mazes and the fire hose. If you think these effects are bad, oh boy.
Well, I've avoided that Shining. I've heard nothing but bad things. Even though I like Steven Weber and some projects, he's also been in some bad ones. I've avoided that Shining like the plague.
You knew.
I've not heard a thing about it. Yeah, I knew. Yeah.
Yeah, you knew. But yes, of course it looks cheap. Of course it's a model. And that's not my complaint. Again, I understand. I've been here many, many times. But again, you're telling me Annie's important. Destroy the house, Annie. You say it's a bad house. You kill the house. You don't have an epilogue where the house is still standing and Nancy Travis and Ellen are still up in the tower.
And why have these people who had, for all intents and purposes, a nightmarish weekend come to say goodbye to a house? And it doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. It does not make any sense.
None. I don't get this epilogue, why they would come back there and leave roses and seem sentimental about this.
Well, people died. Right? So they witnessed people dying. So maybe that's the only thing I could think of. That's what I got from the roses. But why even go back? Go to the pub and pour one out for them. You don't have to go to the house. Come on.
But they leave one rose for each of the survivors, not one rose for each of the dead people, or there'd be less roses.
No. Yep.
And what is the relationship now between Steve and Annie? Is Steve dating Rachel?
Yes. That is exactly what we were supposed to watch, is that he was the one to say, I'm not going to call you sister, I'm going to call you Rachel. He saw the woman in her. And again, it would have been nice to have seen that. I wish I had watched the story of a girl coming out of her shell and step away from being the caretaker of her crazy sister.
So the sequel here is then little Annie being jealous of Sis with Steve because she was clearly making googly eyes at Steve the whole time.
Oh yeah, Annie's evil.
And that's what the stinger should have been, is that Annie finally wakes up and sees that Sis and Steve are serious and she can't have him. That would have been a really great stinger, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, I agree.
And we see the ghosts there and a sign that the condo builders are coming. So will the ghosts haunt the condo, or will the ghosts be demolished with the house?
The ground was evil. Keep in mind, before there was ever a house, there was murder on the foundation. So anything you build here on this ground is going to end up, it may not be these ghosts. Ellen's story may be over, but somebody's going to move in that condo and become the new Ellen.
It's no longer Steve's problem.
Yeah,
it's gonna be someone else's problem.
He's got a new one with Annie and Rachel. Yeah.
It's gonna be Mr. Roper's problem is what it's gonna be. Yeah.
So Brock, Stewart, what color of red is Rose Red? Brock.
Maroon. Like, it's pretty dark. I have to say, the first 90 minutes, they got me intrigued. They really did. I didn't like some of the acting, but I did like some of the acting. Nancy Travis wasn't bothering me as much as she usually did in the first 90 minutes. But as I mentioned earlier, halfway through the second episode, I realized there's no way they have enough time to do this, and I'm not falling for their tricks anymore of showing me a ghost very quickly, kind of like they did on X-Files or Doctor Who, where they only give you a tiny bit of a hint at the end of a self-contained episode there's a bigger thing going on. I'm no longer falling for that trope. I did like some of the art direction. I did like some of the sets. I liked maybe two of the actors, but this thing is poorly written. It's not very well directed. The guy who directed this has no vision or even has any sort of inkling on what to do, on how to make something look spooky or interesting. The few times where he had something to show us, he quickly ruined the shot by either lingering or showing us how it was done because the cinematographer or the lighting or himself setting up the shots or whatever happened did not convey what they needed to. But there is some interesting things going on, but there is no reason to have this to be 4.5 hours. Even if this was 2 hours, I think it would still be bad, but it wouldn't be as bad as what we saw here. I have seen worse things. My issue here really was I got really tired of watching this. Again, maybe 2 nights, it could possibly be a slight pinkish red arrow, but as it stands now, in the format it is, a ton, and I mean a dump truck full of missed opportunities, add up to not a very enjoyable way to spend 3 evenings of your life watching Rose Red. So yes, it's a solid not recommend, a solid red arrow.
Stewart.
You know what? I would have loved to have seen Haunting of Hill House adaptation adapted by Stephen King and directed by Steven Spielberg. That would have been great. Even if it wasn't great, I would have loved to see that. I'm quite sure it would have been better than Jan de Bont's over the top, oh, the bed's eating her kind of junk that stunk up the theaters in 1999. But if Rose Red bears witness to the project that Stephen King always wanted to make, then I can understand why Spielberg took a pass, right? Because this is not the solution. We didn't need more of this in Haunting 1999. We're told this house is alive and it's feeding on guests, and yet where's the vitality? It's drawn out, overly familiar ghost story where I don't like any of the human characters. None of them. I'm with the house. Eat them all. The investigators are chum, and the house is the only thing I like. And we don't even have a real explanation for why it's called Rose Red, or whether it's doing the will of Ellen or bent Ellen to the will of it. And that's because Stephen King, as a writer, decided to not make choices. It works for him sometimes. You know, you do watch The Shining, and it's full of mysteries that, you know, people get lost in. They have their own theories about what's going on. I will always wonder about what it is like to get a blowjob from a man in a bear suit because of The Shining.
Stuart, I no longer wonder. I know.
and again, I think, again, that's part of the magic of that movie. There's no moments that elicit that kind of thing here. And partly that's network television. And partly it's this director doesn't have a dynamic visual style. And partly it's because Stephen King didn't bother to write something cinematic. He wrote something that is drab and gray and, yeah, obsessed with characters he's already written before. Yeah, I just think that you're wise to stick with the original Haunting, or the great, really, honestly, the best one. Really, one of the greatest works of horror I could ever recommend anyone see is the Netflix show adaptation, The Haunting of Hill House. I love that so much. There are ways to get this story told that will be very satisfying. This ain't it. And I was willing to give it a pass. I'd never liked it, but I was, for the first 2 nights, tolerant of its dawdling pace because I just kind of like this as an environment. It's just kind of a soft spot. I'm an easy lay when it comes to haunted houses. But boy, night 3 craps the bed. Yeah, Rose Red deserves a wrecking ball. It's a red arrow.
And honestly, for me, this feels like badly written Stephen King fan fiction. Like somebody who loves Stephen King, wants to be Stephen King, decided to write their own horror story, and they're quote-unquote homaging King, but what they're really doing is ripping it off. I mean, this is The Shining, but instead of a psychic hotel, it's a lot of psychics in a big house. We'll still have an old woman corpse ghost and a seductive young ghost who turns ugly, just like The Shining, but we'll change it just a little. We'll have walking suits of armor instead of hedge animals, and a hammer instead of a croquet mallet. Then we're going to name all of our characters after King's other works and make one a direct copy of Carrie. And then Johnny from the Dead Zone touching things to get psychic visions. But we'll gender swap him so nobody's going to notice. We're even going to bring in Native American burial grounds from Pet Sematary, overbearing parents from The Stand or Carrie or so many of these stories. Let's bring in a magical Negro, King's favorite trope since The Green Mile and The Stand, and make that Tsukina. And even the very unlikely situation of somebody's business partner hanging himself while children watch. That's so specific. Why would King take that from it and put it in here? Then throw in a dash of Dolores Claiborne with the wronged woman who kills her husband and gets away with it. But like so many fanfic authors, the one writing this lacks talent. They can have greatest hits of King's assembled works, but bring nothing original of their own and nothing scary. So the biggest twist isn't in Rose Red, it's that this isn't done by a King wannabe. King did this to himself. After 27 years, maybe he's earned the right to remix his own catalog, but he's just burning daylight here. Rose Red is a spot-the-reference drinking game for King obsessives, but I forgot to bring the tequila that makes it bearable. I think King's just resting on his laurels. And truthfully, the most King thing of all in this miniseries is it is too damn long. Cutting this down to one night, if it were even a 3-hour night, would give this story the pacing it needs. I do think there's plenty of blame to go around here, though. I don't want to just spotlight on King. Craig R. Baxley's direction is as lifeless as the ghosts in Rose Red, and I feel he's to blame for some actors I've liked in other things turning in career worst performances. And then the actors themselves, roles big or small. I said, Matt Ross, R. Emery, he'll go on. I love him in Big Love. I thought he was a very good actor in Big Love. Here, his face is frozen in a I smelled something bad but can't find it expression. He torpedoes this production. But I do think after this conversation, Nancy Travis is even worse. Her spiral into madness is somewhere between SNL sketch and a soap opera actress on meth. And the rest of this cast, I think we get more emotion from the Rose Red dollhouse. And I thought maybe I'd get some real horror after knowing why Steven Spielberg and Stephen King parted ways. But I think being on ABC sanitized this to death. There's more blood in an orange. Ghosts appear, CGI happens, nothing sticks. The scariest thing is the runtime. But I'm going to end on a positive note. 2 good things came out of this. First, if writing this helped King to recover and get back into writing, that's great. I'm glad he found therapy through the writing process. It's some of his absolutely worst writing, but like with Dreamcatcher, like with Langoliers, he was on drugs. So I can maybe forgive him this awfulness. And second, unlikely as I found it, the tie-in book is a pretty good read. Again, I think it's like Southern Gothic Gone with the Wind, and it has a real mood and better character exploration. So maybe, just maybe, I'm going to hold out a candle of hope that the prequel based on this book that we're going to review next week will do something that King hasn't already recycled. But after this one, I'm not going to bet the overlook on it.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't mean that the thing we're watching next week, although an ABC TV movie that uses large parts of what we've already seen and been underwhelmed by. Yeah, I liked the book well enough. You could tell a good story with it. And I think not having the modern day characters will help. Honestly, I don't think that the investigators in 2002 brought much to where the story really wanted to focus, which is Ellen and the house. But just, again, to end on a positive note, we will never have to watch a network TV miniseries in the Stephen King retrospective again. That makes me happy. I never recommended one. There were some that I probably should have. They were almost good. I think The Salem's Lot from 79, Tim Curry's Itch, The Stand, you're a much bigger fan of it, Arnie, than I am. They were close to working. I don't think that they ultimately did. This wears somewhere in the middle with Storm of the Century and Desperation, but most of it's been awful. Tommyknockers, Langoliers, NBC's Carrie, and yeah, could it get worse than Steven Weber with a croquet mallet in a 4-part Shining?
I don't even understand the nostalgia certain people have, Gen Xers, for that 70s Salem's Lot. I keep hearing people who were like, I was scared by it as a kid. That's great. It's not scary now. And the same thing, I think, for millennials with the Tim Curry It. People are like, that was so scary when I was a child. I was a teenager and that thing was laughable when it first aired, let alone now. You know, it just, by the time you bring out the spider puppet, turn it off. It is, these miniseries are just no good. And I'm glad to hear we're done. I didn't realize we were done.
Yeah.
Watch them go back and make another one. This one was an enormous hit. I mean, there's a reason why there's a sequel 1 year later.
Yeah.
Is because airing during sweeps, it averaged 18.5 million viewers and an 8.5 rating. Networks would kill for those numbers these days, but that was good even back then.
Yeah, well, I'm not holding out hope, but I do think Diary of Ellen Rimbauer could be better, more focused. Being one night and having no Stephen King involvement makes me happy for next Tuesday. In the meantime, what makes me less happy is Toxic Avenger 2 for our platinum donors this Friday. But hey, somebody wanted this.
I've seen this one, but I don't remember it. I watched all 3 back to back in the 80s, so I can't tell you what happened in which one. I've only revisited the first one when we put it in our book. So this is going to be a return to something I haven't watched in like 40 years for me. I'm hoping it can have the laughable fun of the first.
I have not seen the first one, so I will be watching and listening along like our patrons. And knowing that if the movie is not good at all, but they made sequels, so it has to be something good there, I do know that you guys will have funny episodes, especially the second time around with Toxic Avenger 2, so I'm looking forward to listening to that podcast.
And if you want to join us for all of these, including the remake, which might actually be good, you can find out how at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate. And if you can't donate, you could still help out the show by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes, on Podbean, on Stitcher, on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. That would be greatly appreciated as well. And I just appreciate you listening to Now Playing. Thank you for sticking it out as we covered the last Stephen King miniseries. And Brock Stewart, thank you for joining me. Till next time, that's Rose Red, sweetheart.
I thank you all for your attention, and to remind you of what someone or other famous once said, the truth is out there.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Now Playing, and we hope you've enjoyed the show.
Look at you. You wanted it all along.
Come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com to hear our reviews of other Stephen King movies, such as Carrie, The Shining, Children of the Corn, Cujo, and dozens more in our archive section.
Is that supposed to scare me?
Also on our site, hear reviews of other films such as Maniac, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Saw, Riddick, Friday the 13th, The Avengers films, Star Trek, and more.
Do you hear me? You do, don't you?
Find hundreds of movie review podcasts at NowPlayingPodcast.com and come back each week for another new movie review.
The story's not over. It's just the beginning.
Now Playing is an independent podcast, 100% crowdfunded, thanks to listeners like you.
Come back. Come back and help me build.
You can donate directly by tapping the support button at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
Help me. Help us. Help us build.
And you can join our crowdfunding campaign for early access to new episodes, exclusive reviews, and bonus reviews available for a one-time contribution.
Build me to the heavens, and life never stops. Build me to the heavens, and life never stops. Join me. Build
to the heavens, and life never stops.
Build
me to the heavens, and
life
never stops.
Build me to the heavens, and life
You can also help out Now Playing by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. A link to Now Playing's iTunes listing can be found at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
On with the show?
On with the show.
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
And if I get a little crazy on the subject from time to time, please forgive me. I put in a lot of long days.
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
Could you please try to remember who's running this expedition?
Now Playing is edited by Heath and Arnie.
It's quick, isn't it? What they do. And it doesn't hurt them.
The film discussed in this podcast is the property of its respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
I hear you in your room at night. Mommy hears everything.
The opinions expressed on Now Playing are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the opinion of Venganza Media Incorporated.
Tell the truth and shame the devil.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2025, all rights reserved, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
How beautiful you are, Rose Red.
Called Sister or Sissy, played by 2.5 Men's Melanie Linsky.
Ouch, come on, that's so not fair.
Now, come on, man. That's not fair to her.
She's a good actress, yeah.
She's great.
She was great in 2.5 Men. I stopped watching the show when she left.
No, but she's done a lot of other work.
Yeah, Heavenly Creatures, Yellow Jackets, Last of Us, come on.
But she's best known for the hit sitcom.
No, she's not. No. Yellow Jackets would be what she's best known. She's the star of that show.
Maybe she got national attention for the first time on 2.5 Men. I'll give you that.
Yeah. No one's talking about a woman in that show, by the way.
Yeah, it's not. That's not fair.
Yeah.
But I guess we've been on the air long enough, 15, 16 years now, that it only took that long to mention Duckman. We've referenced so many obscure things. I guess Duckman was due. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I talked about Duckman when we reviewed Weird Science because it was part of the same hour on USA. It started with the Weird Science TV series and ended with the Duckman TV series.
Yeah, my point is that that's not something you laud. But yes, I get what you're saying. You enjoy the actress. I don't.